Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto kidnapped from his mother and village at a young age. Young Naruto had his memories sealed away. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Laughter and cheerful voices. This is what surrounded the young boy as he laid in the grass on the hilltop, resting under a cherry blossom tree. Hearing his name being called out, Naruto sat up and looked to where the voices came from. Seeing 5 bodies running towards them, all female. A blur of pink, blue, red, and black hair was all he could make out as they drew near, giggling and laughing as they playfully pushed each other back to reach him first. Chan, 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 Chan. He cheerfully called out to them as he stood up to greet the approaching girls. Though as they drew near, their faces became more and more blurry, making it so he couldn't make out what they looked like. However, he was still overjoyed to see them as the pink-haired girl had won the impromptu race between the 5 girls, wrapping her arms around his neck as she planted a kiss on his lips. "No fair, Chan!" the red-headed girl shouted. "You cheated." "I did not, Chan," the pink-haired girl that had just kissed Naruto responded. "We agreed that there were no rules." "Which you took complete advantage of with your wind affinity," the blue-haired girl stated as she reached the group. "At any rate, your mother has sent us to tell you that tomorrow she will officially announce our engagement to you, Naruto-kun." "I'm so excited, Naruto-kun," a girl with long black hair exclaimed as she pounced upon the young blonde boy. "Me too," a second girl with short black hair spoke up as she reached the group, panting slightly, not being as physical as the other girls. "Yup, and after we come of age, we'll all be married to Naruto-kun," the pink-haired girl exclaimed as she brought Naruto and the other girls into a large hug filled of warmth and joy, prompting the entire group to laugh. "Here, I made these for all of you." Naruto smiled as he reached into his pocket and pulled out 5 separate necklaces with silver chains and a bluish-green crystal, handing one to each of the girls in front of him. "It's beautiful, Naruto-kun," the red-haired girl exclaimed as she cradled the necklace in her hands. "I agree, it is quite charming that you made these," the blue-haired girl stated as she held her own necklace. "I love it," the girl with short black hair exclaimed as she hugged the necklace. "As expected from my destined one," the long black-haired girl replied. "Yup, I wanted to make one for each of you to signify our bond together." Naruto smiled as the crystal of each of the necklaces glowed brightly. "So that when things get dark, our love will glow brighter to light up the darkness." "We love you, Naruto-kun," the 5 girls exclaimed as they brought the blonde boy into another hug. "I love you girls too," he smiled. "My Heims." "Come on, Sama is waiting for us," the blue-haired girl stated, prompting the small group of young lovers to chuckle and laugh as they took off in another impromptu race. Real world. Slowly, he opened his eyes and stared up at the morning sky as clouds slowly drifted overhead, birds chirping and singing to greet the day. With a groan, he sat up and rubbed the sleep out of his eyes, noting that he had ended up crying while he slept. That dream again. He mentally sighed. Reaching down, he took hold of the necklace he wore of the same design of the ones that he gave to the girls, his princesses, in his dream, receiving a sense of comfort from it. "I've been having that dream every night for as long as I can remember. It has to mean something, but what?" "You know, you shouldn't sleep outside." A soft voice sounded from just behind him, off to the left. Turning his head, he could make out a feminine-like figure wearing a pink kimono. "You could catch a cold." "Never been sick before," Naruto replied as he got up and stretched. "The name's Naruto, by the way." "Haku, a pleasure to meet you, Naruto-san," the now identified Haku greeted. "So, why were you sleeping out in this field?" "Bit of a disagreement with a snot-nosed, spoiled brat," the blonde replied with a snort, thinking back of the previous night when the bridge builder's grandson ranted that they knew nothing of suffering. Naruto had had enough and verbally lashed out at the kid, telling Inari bluntly that many have suffered far more than he ever had, and that the kid should be thankful he still has a family that loves him, all before storming out of the house. "I mean, I understand he has lost someone close to him," Naruto continued, missing the somber frown that showed on Haku's face. "But to assume that no one has suffered more than him?" The kid didn't have to worry about the villagers of the village he lived in gathering to beat him within an inch of his life, to torture him for crimes he never committed, and other reasons unknown to the blonde. Another thing Inari didn't have to worry about was when he was going to get his next meal. Sure, things were tight in Wave right now, but Tsunami always made sure there was food on the table. Naruto, on the other hand, had spent countless weeks rummaging in garbage bins, just looking for something decent enough to sate his hunger. Life can be cruel to good people. Haku commented with a sense of understanding. Why were you crying? Were you having a nightmare? No, not a nightmare. Nightmares are filled with fear, pain, and horror. Naruto replied with a frown before looking down at his necklace, firmly grasping it once more as he closed his eyes. This was I don't know what it was. It was filled with laughter and joy. Sounds like a pleasant dream, so why the tears? There were 5 girls. Naruto smiled slightly as he recalled the dream that had plagued every single night he could recall. Though from the corner of his eye, he could see a teasing smile on Haku's face, but ignored it. I couldn't make out their faces, or hear their names. I could only make out their hair color and voices. But I know they were dear to me. The black-haired teen could only frown at this. It sounded like someone had messed with this poor boy's memories. Removing large chunks of the boy's memories, no doubt from his early childhood. It made the young teen wonder what the person responsible for this was hiding. Maybe it's a sign of what's to come, Naruto-san. Haku smiled, reassuring the boy. I highly doubt it, unless I suddenly de-aged by about 6 years. Naruto chuckled. Then perhaps it was a long-repressed memory. Maybe. He frowned, not liking the implication of it. Though he couldn't argue with it either. Since everything before he was 7 years old was blank. He had asked the old man Hokage about this, and was told that when he was younger, Naruto had fallen from a great height during one of his pranks and hit his head. He never really dwelt much on it, simply accepting what the man whom he saw as a grandfather figure had told him, as the truth. Another reason the young blonde didn't ponder such things was due to the burning sensation that he would feel on the back of his neck. Though it felt like it was coming from inside of his body, causing him an immense amount of pain. Almost to the point he would pass out. That headband, are you a shinobi, Naruto-san? Haku asked, snapping the young blonde out of his thoughts. Yup. He smiled, adjusting his forehead protector. You must train hard then. I have to, if I want to be the Hokage of my village. The blonde replied with his trademark, foxy grin. That way, all the people who look down on me and treat me like dirt will have to acknowledge me. Haku could only chuckle at the boy's drive. Also, I have to fulfill a promise to someone, he added. Tell me, do you have someone precious? Haku inquired, as he continued to pick herbs and place them in the basket. Naruto had to think about that for a moment, as his right hand went immediately to the necklace he wore as a dull pain flared up in the back of his mind. There were only a select handful of people in Konoha he actually cherished, and would go to great lengths to earn their approval. The first and foremost being his Gigi, followed closely by Anko, an eccentric and sadistic woman just a few years older than him that he viewed as an older sister, and finally Irika-sensei along with the father and daughter duo at his favorite ramen stand. I suppose I do, even if they are not many, the blonde replied. That is good. Haku smiled. When you protect someone truly precious to you, that is when you become your strongest. Once again, at the word someone truly precious, Naruto's hand once again found itself wrapping around his necklace, and once again, a dull pain in the back of his mind flared up, causing the blonde to grunt slightly, bringing his hand up to his head to attempt to ease the pain. I agree. The blonde finally answered after the pain subsided, putting on a fake smile to hide his pain. I will train harder to protect those precious to me. Good. The black-haired teen replied as he stood up with the basket now full of healing herbs. Get stronger. I know we will meet again. Right. Naruto smiled, as he watched Haku leave the clearing they were in, feeling a bit more relieved due to having someone to actually talk to about the dreams he had been having. Oh, by the way, Haku paused. I'm a boy. What? Naruto mentally screamed as his mouth hung open in shock at the revelation. He looks prettier than Sakura-chan. As for the young black-haired boy, he couldn't help but chuckle to himself at the blonde's reaction to his revelation. Though it was short-lived as another black-haired youth entered the clearing, the blonde's teammate, Sasuke Uchiha. Remaining silent, Haku walked past the Uchiha boy without a second glance and disappeared into the trees. Though Haku couldn't help but feel sorry for the young blonde. Someone had really messed with the poor boy's memories. He was more than willing to bet that the blonde's dream was exactly what he said it was. A repressed memory of an event dearly important to him. 1 week later. Where did he disappear to this time? Kakashi sighed as he stared at the empty futon that Naruto had been using during their stay at the bridge builder's house. The silver-haired Jonin had noticed a change in the young blonde's demeanor ever since he disappeared the night he stormed out of the house after the confrontation with the bridge builder's grandson. Over the last week, Naruto wasn't as loud or boisterous as he had been the past few years. Oftentimes he would find the young blonde on the dock staring out over the water, as he would stroke the necklace the blonde never took off. Even reducing how much he would ask Sakura out on a date, which while put the pink-haired girl into an off mood. On one hand, the pinkette was happy that the blonde had seemingly given up on her. On the other, she would feel like something was missing due to the blonde's absence. Better go find him before he gets himself into trouble, Kakashi thought out loud as he turned and hobbled down the stairs, still not fully healed from his ordeal from his previous battle with Zabuza. Kakashi-sensei. The sole female genin called out as she ran up to him. Have you seen Sasuke-kun? He left just after breakfast to go train. He answered with a frown, since she would have known that if she hadn't spent an hour and a half in the bathroom trying to make herself look good for the last Uchiha. While Sakura was book smart, had perfect chakra control, and was top kunoichi of her class, she was a fangirl for the raven-haired boy and it severely hampered her focus on her career as a kunoichi. Oh, she replied sheepishly. I was about to go out and look for Naruto. That baka run off again? The pinkette huffed, crossing her arms. I bet he is just doing it to get attention. I doubt it. Kakashi frowned as he left the house with the pinkette in tow. Perhaps the weight of his first mission outside of the village is hitting him and making him realize that being a shinobi is about a lot more than personal gratification and fame. Sakura frowned at this, getting the feeling that her sensei's words were also directed at her as well, but remained silent. After nearly 15 minutes of scouting the wooded area behind the house, they were alerted to the blonde's location when a kunai landed a few feet in front of them, prompting them to look up. Finding Naruto sitting on a branch near the top of the tree. Gashes could be seen cut deeply into the tree's trunk, marking the progress the young teen had accomplished during his night-long training. Morning, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura. The blonde greeted, looking down at the two. Earning a frown from the pinkette due to the lack of chan suffix that the young teen usually attached to her name. Naruto was able to tree walk that high. Sakura thought to herself, clearly amazed that he was able to accomplish such a feat. Meanwhile, Kakashi had other thoughts. It took him just under a week to master the tree walking exercise. The silver-haired jonin thought to himself as he observed the slashes going up the tree trunk. Not too fast, but also not too slow to be completely left behind. Hokage-sama will be pleased. Come on down, Naruto. He finally called up. With a small sigh, the blonde pushed himself up and moved to step down only to slip, causing those below to cry out in surprise before he attacked both feet to the underside of the branch. A shit-eating grin adorning his face. Ha! He exclaimed, looking down at them. I got you! Deciding to not try his luck and ruin a good prank, he continued his trek down the tree trunk before landing firmly. Though he could see neither his sensei, nor his pink-haired teammate were amused by his prank. Kakashi glared at him with narrowed eyes in disapproval, and Sakura was clenching her fists in anger at the blonde's actions. Naruto! She screeched. You idiot! You could have died if you fell from that height. Like you would care. Naruto scoffed as he walked past the now shocked Sakura. It may have been callous for the blonde teen to say such a thing, but after his talk with Haku, he really began to reflect on how those around him perceived him. He really could only count on a very small amount of people within the village that would truly mourn him, should such an event befall him. His current team were not among them. Sakura for one had made it very clear that the pink-haired girl cared very little for anyone who was not named Sasuke Uchiha. Not to mention her constant physical abuse towards him. Lashing out at him for even the smallest of things, some of which he had nothing to do with, and just had the misfortune of being in the general area of her. And don't even get the blonde started on his raven-haired teammate. The Prince of Konoha himself, Sasuke Uchiha. Due to nearly the entire village worshipping the very ground the last Uchiha walked on, the raven-haired teen had grown a superiority complex and an ego to match. Looking down on anyone, regardless of their rank within the village. Throughout the first few months of doing nothing but D-rank missions, Sasuke had repeatedly complained about doing what he dubbed servant work, doing as little as possible while pushing a majority of the work off onto Naruto. Lastly, there was their Jonin sensei, Kakashi Hatake. At best, the lazy Jonin could be described as that, lazy. Though Naruto did have to concede that at least Kakashi was impartial when it came to him, but almost to a neglectful level as the masked Jonin had almost immediately shown favoritism towards the Uchiha. Naruto, that was uncalled for. Kakashi chastised, earning another scoff from the blonde. You know it's true, Kakashi-sensei. Not a damn person will give a damn if I die. He responded without even look back at his Jonin sensei. Hell, I bet half the village would celebrate my death. Kakashi could only frown as the blonde made his way towards the house, while Sakura was shocked to receive such coldness from the blonde who had on crush on her. However, what really caught her off guard was how sure he sounded when he said the village would celebrate his death. Like he fully believed that the village would celebrate his death. As the two watched the blonde disappear into the trees towards the house, Sakura turned to Kakashi, as if to ask her sensei about what had just happened. As long as she had known the blonde knucklehead, she had never seen him act so melancholy before. He was always loud, obnoxious, and well, annoying. Well, what was that all about? She asked. Like I said earlier, Naruto is feeling the full weight of what it means to be a shinobi. As such, he has probably done away with any misconception of how people feel about him, no matter how misguided his feelings are. Was all the silver-haired Jonin replied with usual bored tone. Though on the inside, he was worried about the blonde genin. Not necessarily for his welfare, but the security of the village. I should report this to the Hokage as well. It won't do Konoha any good if our weapon is mentally broken. He mentally sighed as he pulled out his trademark orange book. I'll check the seals tonight, just to make sure they are still holding. On the other hand, Sakura felt a twinge of guilt, knowing she was responsible for at least half of the reasons her blonde teammate felt the way he did. Sure, she didn't really try to get to know him, nor did she really pay attention to his introduction when they first became a team, but she really didn't want him to think she wouldn't care if he died. Perhaps we should at least try to get to know him a bit more, Inner Sakura offered, picking up on her outer self's dilemma. I guess I really don't want him to feel like no one will care if he died. The Pinkette frowned, though content in her decision to try and get to know her blonde teammate better. Great Bridge Battle, 1 week later. Naruto could only watch in shock and horror at the scene that played out in front of him. The blonde had arrived late, having slept in due to training late into the night the previous evening, only to be woken up by Tsunami screaming as two of Gato's thugs had arrived at the house to kidnap the bridge builder's daughter to hold her as ransom to ensure the old man's surrender, and to perhaps use the poor girl for other means of entertainment. To complicate matters further, Inari had rushed to save his mother, nearly getting killed himself had the blonde teen had not acted. Wasting no time, Naruto had quickly subdued the two goons and tied them up to ensure they didn't escape before joining the rest of his team at the bridge. Now, he could only stare as the body of Haku fell lifelessly to the cold hard concrete of the bridge, finally being overwhelmed by the sheer amount of numbers of Gato's thugs. The fat, greedy man had decided to double-cross Zabuza and Haku to prevent from paying the two missing nin. Zabuza fell soon after, unable to overcome the remaining numbers, despite fighting like a demon and dispatching a fair chunk, having already been previously severely injured from his fight with Kakashi. The two biggest obstacles out of his way, Gato began to instruct what was left of his army of goons to dispose of the males, and capture the females to be broken in later before selling them off. Hearing this, something deep within the blonde had snapped as red chakra began to surge around his body. Being barely aware of his surroundings as rage consumed him, he heard what sounded like two popping sounds that came from the base of his neck. Releasing a primal roar, Naruto charged forth with reckless abandon, using the red chakra swirling around him to tear through the remaining thugs, who were now trying to run over each other to escape the raging blonde. His once blue eyes now red with black slit pupils, giving the blonde teen a truly demonic look. Many had attempted to beg for mercy, but their cries fell upon deaf ears as the blonde genin slaked the bridge with their blood. Gato stood frozen in fear where he stood, unable to move or cry out as he watched his men get massacred by one boy. A boy who now stood before him, glaring down on the pudgy man with contempt and fury. PP please. Gato fell to his knees. I'll give you anything, York. He never got to finish as the red chakra swirled around him and ripped him apart, throwing his severed limbs in all directions. Once done, Naruto turned to look towards the remaining conscious members of his team before bending over and clutching his head in pain before his eyes rolled back into his head and he collapsed on the ground. What just happened, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura stammered. I don't know. Kakashi replied, keeping his Sharingan active as he cautiously approached the still form of Naruto, not noticing the subtle glow on the back of the young blonde's neck. Naruto's mindscape. Slowly, Naruto opened his eyes to take in his surroundings. Sitting up, his hand went directly to his necklace, ensuring it was still there. Letting out a sigh of relief upon finding it, he looked around. Craning his head slightly, he could see a large gate behind him. What the hell happened to this place? He asked out loud as he stood up and walked towards the large set of bars. You were kidnapped, Kit. A voice boomed from behind the bars, as a pair of large eyes opened and peered down at the boy. Kurama? Good to see you finally remember, Kit. The large being replied as it moved into the light, exposing the head of a large fox. I've been trying to break that damn seal for years with the one memory I was able to save before it was sealed away as well. The dream Naruto realized. Morgiana-chan, Rory-chan, Kairi-chan, Aqua-chan, and Zian-chan. My Himes. Slowly, the young blonde slumped down against the bars of the cage. Not the least bit afraid of the massive beast it held. Grasping his necklace as he was finally able to fully remember his girls' faces. Their smiles. The way their eyes would light up when they saw him. As such, tears began to stream down his face. Hitting him even harder was remembering his mother's face, and above all, her smile. Ka-san, he whispered. Kit, Kurama sighed as he extended part of his tail through the bars to comfort his host. We need to talk. Barigakure, 350 miles northeast of Wave. A young girl with red hair and ocean blue eyes, no older than 14, stood on the cliff face, overlooking the water crashing into the shore. Staring out over the open ocean as tears stained her cheeks as she clutched a photo in her right hand. The photo in question showed her and 4 other girls, all surrounding a single blonde-haired boy with distinctive whisker marks on his cheeks, whom had a large smile on his face. All 5 had managed to sneak a kiss on the blonde boy's cheeks just as the photo was taken. Morgiana and Rory on the boy's left, and Aqua, Zian, and herself on the right sided. The photo itself was worn, and faded in some areas, littered with watermarks from when she would cry over it. Please, be safe, Naruto-kun. Kairi silently prayed, closing her eyes as she clutched the photo, a lone tear escaping her eye. Kami, if you're listening, please allow us to be reunited. For all of us, and especially Kushina-sama. It had been just over 7 years since Naruto was taken away from them, and while she and the rest of the girls did their best to meet each day like normal, it just felt like their light was gone. The way he would smile and laugh always warmed their hearts and brought them joy. Over the years, Kairi had filled out nicely, growing into an attractive young woman with a slender athletic body. She had abandoned the dresses she once wore as a child, in favor of pink and black bicycle shorts, with a matching hooded sleeveless vest that exposed just enough of her developing cleavage, along with a black pair of kunoichi sandals. Letting out a sad sigh, she turned from her spot on the cliff face and began to make her trek back towards where the others were gathered. It was then that she felt a very familiar chakra source erupting from the southwest, prompting her to look in that direction. Her heart swelling with hope from feeling the familiar chakra source. Kurama-sama, Naruto-kun. In the blink of an eye, the red-haired teen disappeared in a water shunshin. Not even a full minute later, Kairi arrived in one of the village's many parks, where the others had gathered. Did you feel it? She asked, a tone of excitement, and above all, hope, in her voice. We did, Zian commented, earning nods from the others. Like Kairi, Zian had filled out nicely over the past 7 years. Her hair had only grown out slightly as she insisted on keeping it short, though her bangs now covered one of her beautiful golden yellow eyes. Aside from that, she sported her usual black hooded cloak that hid her standard ANBU style gear that she wore. A simple black pair of shorts, and sleeveless vest, along with a pair of knee-high kunoichi combat sandals. Also like her red-haired friend, Zian had gained a more athletic body due to all her training. No doubt about it, that was Kurama-sama's chakra signature. The pink-haired teen Morgiana stated, her pink eyes sparkling with a life not seen in them for nearly 7 years. Of the 5 girls, Morgiana had grown the most, especially in her chest area, giving her a rather large bust for her age. Aside from that, she had trained rigorously throughout the years, specializing in taijutsu and adding her wind affinity into her style. Though her fashion style had not changed much over the years, still wearing her white battle dress with an orange cinch tied around her waist, and a simple pair of white shorts underneath, accompanied with a pair of brown kunoichi sandals. Rory, whom was leaning against her halberd-like weapon, merely silently nodded in agreement with her pink-haired friend. A sense of excitement bubbling up inside her, as well as hope. Hope that she and her other soon-to-be sister wives would be reunited with their loved one. Like the others, she had grown into a beautiful and deadly young woman over the years, earning the nickname of Rory the Reaper. Her long black hair flowing in the breeze while her piercing red eyes took in everything around her. Her outfit was unique among her soon-to-be sister wives. Sporting a black gothic Lolita-like dress with red trimmings, though the bottom half was a combination of a pair of shorts woven into the dress. A large bow adorned the top of her head, giving her the appearance of having fox-like ears. To finish off her outfit, she wore a black pairing of stockings that stopped halfway up her thighs, and a pair of red shinobi combat boots. We should report to Kushina-sama, Aqua suggested, with the others quickly agreeing. She would have no doubt felt it as well. With blue hair and equally blue eyes, Aqua had matured greatly over the years, usually being the pillar of strength for the others after Naruto's disappearance. Remaining calm and collected in even the most dire of situations, becoming the voice of reason for the group. sporting a purplish-black high-collared halter top with two pink intersecting belts crossing over the center of her chest, and a pair of black shorts. A pair of black stockings that stop halfway up her thigh and a black pair of shinobi combat boots round out her outfit. With one final nod in agreement, each of the 5 girls disappeared in their signature Shenshin technique. Kyra once again disappeared in a swirl of water. Xian in a flash of lightning. Rory in a swirl of fire. Aqua in a mist of snow, and finally Morgiana in a gust of wind. Barricage Tower. So you all felt it as well. The red-haired woman spoke as she gazed out the window that overlooked a good portion of the village she now led before finally turning to look at the 5 girls who were now kneeling before her, prompting the red-haired woman to roll her eyes. I told you 5 you don't have to do that. I'm going to be your mother-in-law, Databane. Sorry, Kushina-sam. Xian was cut off by another glare from the red-haired woman. Anyways, Aqua interrupted, catching the barricade's attention. We felt the chakra signature coming from the southwest. Right, Kushina turned her attention to a large map that was spread out over the desk. Upon feeling the Kyuubi's chakra signature, the red-haired woman knew the 5 girls would soon arrive and had prepared accordingly. And according to the map, the most likely place it could have originated from is Wave Country. As if to emphasize her point, Kushina had made a line with her finger from the location of the island their village was on, and dragged her finger down diagonally, until it reached where the small island known as Wave was located. We're going to go find him and bring him home, right? Morgiana inquired, which prompted the other 4 teens to look expectantly towards the barricade. Kushina sighed, before addressing the 5. Your mission is to go to Wave, talk to the villagers there and get what information you can. Afterwards, you are to return here to report your findings, no matter how bad they may be. Kushina instructed, receiving a nod from each of the girls in front of her. However, I stress that you keep your hopes tempered. My Sochi may not be there when you arrive. But if he is there, bring him home. Understood, Kushina-sama. Kyra replied with a small bow of her head, prompting the others to do the same. You leave early tomorrow, the red-head village leader stated. Now go and pack and prepare yourselves. Bidding their goodbyes, the 5 departed the office to prepare for their mission. A mixture of excitement, hope, and a little bit of fear simmering between all of them. Leaving the red-haired woman alone, who finally collapsed in her chair and laid her head down on the desk. A lone tear escaping her eye. Please, be safe, Sochi, and come back home, please. She silently prayed, lifting her head up to gaze out over the village once more from his desk. Wave Country. The young blonde teen stood silently over 2 marked graves, one of which was identified with a mask, and the other with a massive sword being used as a gravestone. Saying a silent prayer in hopes that the 2 fallen shinobis would find what they desired in the afterlife. Reluctantly, Kakashi had allowed him to give the 2 a proper burial, using their personal items as grave markers. Sasuke had scoffed at the concept of honoring a fallen enemy whilst Sakura had remained uncharacteristically silent the past few days. The pink-haired girl had even halted her advances towards the raven-haired emo, much to the entire team's surprise. Though even more surprising for Naruto was that she appeared to be watching him silently from a distance, a look of concern etched on her face. This of course only made the young blonde even more apprehensive of her, not trusting her intentions. He had been lured in by false concern in the past when he was only 10 years old. A mistake that had nearly cost him his life. Then there was his sensei, Kakashi. After the incident in the forest, the masked pervert had snuck over to his cot while he was sleeping, ensuring the seals were still present on the young blonde's neck. Of course at the time, they were still active. However, after the fight on the bridge, the silver-haired Jonin had checked once more, only to find that once again, the seals were still present. Unknown to him, the seals on Naruto were now fake and merely simulated the effects, even able to fool the Sharingan, and possible even a Byakugan. Leaving Kakashi unaware that the young blonde had overpowered the seals, and had now gained back all of his memories. Naruto had to hand it to Kurama, the fox had faked the seals perfectly. Now it was just up to him to keep up the act. Though he mentally shuddered about proclaiming about being Hokage and acting like a complete fool. Though, perhaps he could use this mission as an excuse to tone it down a little. After all, he had just taken his first life on the first mission outside of the village. The old monkey surely would expect some mental change after that, right? Of course, all of this made the young blonde recall his discussion with Kurama after he had passed out on the bridge. Flashback no Jutsu. It seemed like hours had passed before Naruto had finally calmed down enough to talk to the large fox. Though in reality, it had only been around half an hour. Though during that time the blonde was conflicted with himself. Naruto had felt like he had abandoned his girls, and his mother, despite not really having a choice in the matter. How are you holding up, Kit? Kurama asked, after minutes of silence had passed between the two. I don't know, Kurama. He finally answered after a handful of seconds. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how this could have happened. The large fox sighed as he laid his massive head down near the cage doors. He knew his blonde host was not going to like the answer, but the boy deserved to know the truth. He just hoped Naruto wouldn't act too irrationally. In short, we were betrayed. Kurama began with another sigh. You were trusted alone with the bastard Kakashi that night. He lured you into an isolated training field under the promise of teaching you one of your father's techniques. And he slapped a seal on the back of my neck instead. Naruto growled, remember the events of that night. Yeah. Except I know he didn't make the seal. The fox stated with narrowed eyes. That seal was from a Fuinjutsu Grandmaster, and there is only one who would be stupid enough to invoke your mother's wrath. That perverted bastard. The blonde clenched his fists before slamming them down into the water in anger. It was bad enough with him perving on my himes, but to betray my mother and father like that. I'll rip his balls off and shove them down his throat. You'll be lucky to get a chance once your mother finds out. Kurama laughed as he imagined the horror the red-haired woman would unleash upon the perverted toad sage. She wasn't called the Crimson Death for nothing. This of course earned a small chuckle from the blonde. Like the large fox behind him, he was imagining different scenarios his mother would put the old fool through. So what now? Naruto finally asked. Once that masked bastard realizes the seals are broken, he will just subdue me again and have them reapplied. Oh, ye of little faith, Kit. Kurama laughed, before he continued with a short explanation. As soon as they broke, I placed false ones in their place. They will simulate the same chakra pattern and action. Also, now that I am aware of their intentions, I can block further seals from working as they should. So that means you're free from the seals, Kit. The fox smiled. However, it will be up to you to maintain the illusion until we can escape this cesspool of a village. Naruto merely nodded, understanding what his partner was saying. Even though he had his memories back as well as the old lessons his mother and others had taught him, he couldn't tip his hand. He would have to maintain the illusion he was still an idiot. Well, Naruto smiled as he stood up and turned to look towards the large fox. I am sure with these traumatic events on this mission, I am expected to tone it down a little. Perhaps, Kit. Kurama chuckled. Just try and find a balance so you don't attract too much unwanted attention. Agreed. The blonde nodded before looking around his mindscape once more, before shaking his head in disgust. But first, let's take care of this place. Closing his eyes, he began to focus on his surroundings. Allowing the sewer system to fade away, soon to be replaced with a large forested area, complete with a meadow clearing and a babbling brook cutting through the center of it all. Off in the distance, a large waterfall could be seen pouring into a large lake that the brook was connected to. For added measure, the young blonde also added an assortment of wildlife to his new mindscape, similar to how he had it structured before he was kidnapped. There we go, much better. Naruto smiled, turning to his companion who was no longer trapped behind the cage. A collar hanging firmly around his neck to act as the seal. Thanks, Kit, I really miss this place. The large fox smiled as he took in his new, yet familiar surroundings. No, thank you, Kurama. The blonde gave a soft smile. Even if I didn't know it at the time, that dream I had every night gave me hope that things would get better. You're welcome, Kit. Kurama smiled before it turned into a sadistic grin as he gazed at the blonde boy before him. Now let's talk training. Because you are severely out of practice with your skills, no thanks to that old monkey. A shiver ran down Naruto's spine as he recalled the fox's training regiment. Knowing full well he was in for a world of pain and suffering for the immediate future. Still, he would meet it head-on and get stronger. So that one day, he would reunite with his Himes and his mother. Flashback no Jutsu's dispel. Naruto was taken out of his reminiscing when he felt a lone chakra signature behind him. Letting out a soft sigh, he kept quiet until his pink-haired teammate reached where he stood. No need to let others know of his sensory capabilities. Though he frowned slightly as he felt her primary emotion was concern. Did you know them? Sakura asked as she stood next to him, looking down at the graves. Though she mentally wanted to slap herself for asking such a ridiculous question. Actually, I only met Haku 2 weeks ago, when I slept outside. The blonde replied, though in a solemn tone, seeing no reason to hide his meeting with the ice user. Though at the time, I didn't know he worked with Zabuza. The pinkette was about to inquire further, but was shaken from her thoughts when she heard the blonde next to her chuckle. Seeing her look of confusion, the Jinchuriki decided to let her in on what he found funny. I was just remembering when I first met Haku. He chuckled again. I actually thought he was a girl, because of how cute he looked. Sakura couldn't help but giggle as she imagined it. Though it did help validate the blonde's story when she recalled that Sasuke commented on Naruto talking with a girl out in the woods, so it appeared the look even fooled Sasuke. "So, how are you holding up after she tentatively asked. "Why do you care, Sakura?" the blonde asked, causing the pinkette to flinch slightly at his tone, also feeling a slight pain in her chest at the lack of the usual chan suffix that had once accompanied her name. I'm sorry. She sighed, knowing what she had to do. Her and her inner self had had a long discussion and reflected of their past interactions with the blonde, and realized just why the boy felt the way he did, and they were to blame for it, partially. "I know I gave you the impression that I don't care about you, and I've been a complete bitch towards you." Naruto's eyes widened slightly at her words. "Is she really?" "I think she is, Kit. I feel actual sincerity in her words," Kurama replied. "Despite that, I would care if something happened to you," the pinkette continued. "And I am sure there are those in the village that would as well." "Very few would," Naruto replied automatically, causing Sakura to frown slightly. "And one of them wouldn't be for the reasons she thinks. And anyways, Kakashi-sensei wanted me to tell you that we will be returning back to the village in 2 days, once the bridge is finished," Sakura stated and turned to leave the blonde-haired genin alone. Though the pinkette was a little disheartened that the discussion didn't carry on for as long as she had hoped it would. She truly did want to make an effort to actually get to know him, instead of just ignoring him like she had in the past. "Thank you, Sakura," Naruto finally spoke, though not turning to face her. Hearing this, a small smile formed on the pinkette's face before she ran off to rejoin her sensei, and perhaps ask Sasuke for a date once they got back to the village. Konoha, 4 days later. Kakashi let out a quiet sigh as he thought of the report he was going to have to deliver to the Hokage. First and foremost was the events surrounding the Jinchuriki. In between the blonde's shift in attitude during the tree-walking incident, which had affected his pink-haired student. He had checked the seals that night, and was relieved to find them still in place, which only reaffirmed his earlier excuse to Sakura that the stress of the Jinchuriki's first mission outside the village had forced him to reevaluate certain aspects in his life. Of course, the villagers, with the way the villagers had treated the boy, the masked Jonin wasn't surprised that the blonde was finally starting to take a more cynical outlook on those around him. However, it needed to be curbed a little so the boy would remain docile and loyal to the village. At least there were a few that genuinely treated the boy well. Like the father and daughter duo at the ramen stand, Irika, and the Tokubetsu Jonin Enko. Kakashi still didn't know how those two met, but didn't care as the Hokage didn't deem it a threat to the weapon's development. That led to the Jonin's next problem. The incident on the bridge when Naruto had tapped into the fox's power and slaughtered Gato and his men after they had killed Zabuza and his little helper. No doubt the realization of taking a life still weighed heavy on the boy's mind, as he had barely said a word the entire trip back, having nearly completely ignored Sakura, only giving her short replies when the pink-haired genin would attempt to start a conversation with him. This was troubling to Kakashi, as it showed that the blonde had all but given up on his crush on the girl, which threw a wrench into the masked Jonin's plan to utilize his feelings for her to manipulate him further towards the Hokage's goal of turning the blonde into the village's weapon, once he was broken enough into a form of submission and loyalty towards the village. "You 3 are dismissed," Kakashi stated after his team and himself arrived inside the village. "I'll report the mission's success to the Hokage." "Hi, Kakashi-sensei," 2 of them replied, while the third merely nodded and slowly began to make his way towards his apartment. Meanwhile, Sakura was torn on what to do, as both boys on her team had split off into different directions, forcing her to have to choose. Should she follow her crush and obsession in hopes of getting a date with the last Uchiha, or should she make good on her promise and try to talk with Naruto more? Frowning slightly, she reached her decision and walked in the same direction Naruto did. Kakashi had noticed this, but said nothing. If she inadvertently reignites the crush he once had on her, it would be all the better, and would make him easier to manipulate down the road with the lure of a relationship. Though in reality, the masked Jonin already knew the Hokage wouldn't allow any form of serious relationship to form with the boy until it was needed, and then they would just get a volunteer to become impregnated with the Jinchuriki's child to pass the Kyubitu, once Naruto no longer had a purpose. Shrugging it off, he quickly made his way towards the Hokage's tower. It didn't take him long to arrive at the tower, jumping into the office through the window like he normally did when he had to report something. Immediately, Hiruzen looked up from his desk, setting his sights on the masked Jonin that now stood in front of him. "Report, Kakashi," the elder man ordered. Taking a deep breath, the silver-haired man began to relay his detailed report of what had transpired while on the mission. "Sakura." The pink-haired Kunoichi couldn't help but feel a swell of anger as she followed her blonde-haired teammate. Initially, she had wanted to quickly reach him and try to talk some more, but her inner self had suggested to hang back. Which is the reason for her current mood. While tailing the blonde, she had noticed the glares sent the boys' way by nearly every villager they had passed. Some even whispering to one another how Naruto should have died on his first mission outside the village. She had even overheard a select few bragging about beating the boy to near death when he was younger. Hearing this, the pinkette clenched her fist. He was right. Sakura mentally sighed. No one in the village would care if he died, and even more so, they would celebrate his death. But why? I don't know. Inner Sakura replied with a frown of her own. But I don't like this. Their words, what they're saying is just horrible. There has to be some that would miss him, right? The pinkette thought with a frown. Though as she thought back, she realized that literally everyone in their graduating class had constantly made fun of the blonde and at one point or another, had bullied him. The only exception being the shy Hyuga heiress. Snapping out of her thoughts, she noticed the blonde teen had been stopped by a slightly older woman with purple hair tied into a fan ponytail, dressed in a tan trench coat, and a full-body mesh outfit, accompanied with an orange skirt. Sakura couldn't help but frown slightly, not trusting the woman after overhearing what the other villagers had said. Though was surprised when the woman's face went from happy and smiling to shock and sadness as she brought the blonde into a hug and began to whisper things into this ear, which earned a nod from Naruto. I guess she is one of the ones who actually care for him. Inner Sakura pointed out. That's good, but still, out of everyone in this village, only one so far. Sakura sighed as she watched the purple-haired woman lead Naruto into a different direction. Frowning slightly, she decided that it would be no use to try and approach him now. Well, he did say he liked ramen. Her inner self reminded the pinkette. Maybe we should stop by there and see if we can find anything. With a new destination set, Sakura took off in the direction of Ichiraku's ramen. Perhaps tomorrow, she would be able to talk with her blonde teammate, now that she had a better perspective of what he has to go through on a daily basis. Hokage Tower. And that is what happened. Kakashi had finally finished his report. Having told Hiruzen every small detail. From Naruto's shift in attitude, to him snapping and killing all of Garo's men, as well as Garo himself on the bridge. You ensure the seals are still active, correct? Correct, Hokage-sama, the masked Jonin replied. After both incidents, the seals are still working perfectly. Good. Hiruzen sighed in relief. The last thing the old man needed was the village's weapon to regain his memories. Even worse would be if Kushina had found out where her missing son had been all these years. What should we do about his change of attitude and him taking his first life? Kakashi inquired. Nothing for now. The elderly man responded. I believe you are correct in your assessment about the boy. If anything, it is better if he becomes more cynical, as the weapon will be less hesitant to kill when commanded to do so. And of his views of the villagers celebrating his death? All according to plan, it will make him feel grateful that he is allowed to live. Hiruzen replied, taking a puff from his pipe. Still, do what you can to downplay it. Of course, Hokage-sama. The silver-haired Jonin answered. I will do my best. However, for the next couple of months, I will not be assigning your team any more missions outside the village, Hiruzen stated. Mostly to avoid any further incidents for the time being. The last thing we need is for Kushina to learn that we have Naruto. Kakashi couldn't help but shudder at the thought. Should the woman discover that he had helped orchestrate her son's kidnapping, death would be a preferable fate over what that woman would inflict upon him. Understood, Hokage-sama? He gulped, earning a nod from the old man. For now, your team has a week off, you are dismissed. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Kakashi bowed before disappearing into a leaf shunshin. Hopefully you have developed a taste for blood after your first kill, young Naruto-kun. Hiruzen darkly grinned at the thought. Because once you have fully submitted to me, I will turn your power towards your home village, making Konoha the strongest of all the hidden villages. Wave Country, 2 days later. The 5 teenage girls had not been in the best of moods. Due to a small squall that had developed during their boat ride, they had been forced to dock on the mainland and travel by foot to Wave Country, which had set them back by a day. However, once they arrived at the massive bridge, their mood had quickly dissipated, replaced with joy and happiness as they read the plaque that greeted travelers. The Great Naruto Bridge. He could actually be here, Kairi commented, tears forming in her eyes as she placed her hand over his name on the plaque. Come on, let's see if anyone knows anything, Morgiana stated, earning an agreeing nod from the girls. Quickly the 5 teens ran across the bridge with renewed speed. A small part of them holding out hope that their blonde fiancé would still be within the village, so that they could take him back home. It didn't take long for the 5 to finish crossing the bridge, arriving inside a quaint-looking village with people happily bustling to and fro, as they went about their daily lives. "Ah, welcome to Wave." A voice spoke up from behind them, prompting them to turn to the one speaking to them. Seeing an old bespectacled man with a large beard and dark eyes, wearing a sleeveless shirt, accompanied by a towel hanging loosely off his neck. "Name's Tazuna, what can I do for you?" "Good afternoon, Tazuna-san." Aqua spoke up as she approached the elderly man, offering him a kind smile. "We were hoping someone could help us." "Depends on what you're asking, but I will do my best, Aqua." The blue-haired teen smiled before gesturing towards the other 4. "And these are Kairi, Zian, Morgiana, and Rory. We come from Barukagir." "That's a bit of a travel," Tazuna observed. "Hell, if he had the money and the means, he would have hired a team of Burishinobi, as the village was considered the strongest of them all." Though the old bridge builder was happy that things had turned out as well as they had, despite the initial setback. "So what brings you to Wave?" Well, Aqua began, but was interrupted by Kairi. "Can you tell us about the bridge?" the redhead inquired. "You like it?" the old man beamed. "Built it myself." "It is quite the piece of architecture." Zian smiled, seeing the old man proud of his accomplishment. "Yup, though it would have never been completed if it wasn't for the Konoha shinobi," Tazuna commented, though at the word Konoha, the girls narrowed their eyes just slightly, already not liking the implications. Especially that blonde kid. "Could you perhaps tell us more about the name of the bridge?" Aqua ventured. "You mean Naruto?" the old bridge builder questioned, adopting a thinking pose as he struggled to remember the blonde's last name. Yuzuke's Yuzume. "Uzumaki perhaps?" Rory offered. "That's it, Naruto Uzumaki." Tazuna smiled. "Good boy, really helped our village reclaim our hope. That is why we named the bridge in his honor." "Is he?" Morgiana asked, fearing that the bridge was named after the blonde boy to honor his memory, due to falling in battle. "No, he left with his team almost a week ago," the old man replied, not noticing the sigh of relief that seemed to echo amongst the girls. "Did he look like this?" Kairi inquired, offering the photo she always had with her. "It's a bit old, though." Tazuna frowned as he took hold of the photo and narrowed his eyes. He could see the 5 girls in front of him, all surrounding a younger version of the blonde teen that had helped their village so much and given hope to his grandson once more. The old bridge builder could clearly see the boy, along with the girls, were extremely happy the day of the photo. Not the lonely teen that had left no more than a week ago. "Why don't we continue this conversation back at my house?" the old man sighed, already seeing the writing on the wall. "My daughter will also be able to answer your questions." Nodding, the 6 of them quietly made their way through the village until they reached a small house at the water's edge. Opening the door, he invited the 5 in, before entering behind them. "Tsunami!" he called out. "I'm home, and we have guests." "Coming!" a feminine voice called out from the kitchen. Before the owner of the voice stepped into view, seeing the Give girls that had accompanied her father, she gave a polite bow and welcomed them to her home. "These girls are looking for Naruto," Tazuna informed his daughter with a serious look in his eye. "Oh, how come?" the brunette inquired as she led the group into the dining room, waiting for each of them to claim a chair to sit in. "Well, we're kind of his fiancés." Aqua chuckled, earning a surprised gasp from the bridge builder's daughter. With a nod of approval from Kairi, Tazuna passed the photo the redhead had given him to his daughter. As she gazed down at it, an expression of realization had washed over her face as she silently passed the photo back to the red-headed teen. 7 years ago, he was kidnapped from our village," Morgiana informed the father and daughter, causing the old man's eyes to narrow. Meanwhile, Tsunami bowed her head in acknowledgement. "And with what we have learned, we now know who took him," Zian finished, with a slight scowl. Meanwhile, Rory was clenching and relaxing her fists in anger at what they had learned, with Morgiana adopting a similar train of thought and desire to go to Konoha and smash the village to pieces and bring back their lover. "But why?" Tsunami inquired. "Why would Konoha kidnap him?" Frowning, the 5 girls looked to one another, before Aqua let out a small sigh and looked the bridge builder's daughter in the eye. "Naruto-kun is the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox, Kyubi. Being a great power," she explained. "We can only surmise that Konoha wanted that power for themselves, despite Barigakure being allied with the village. Not for long, as soon as Kushina-sama finds out, she will want to declare war on them." Zian stated with a slight scoff, earning a nod of agreement among the girls. That explains what happened on the bridge, Tazuna commented, earning a curious look from the others, remembering that his daughter was unaware of what had transpired during the final battle. When Gato and his men showed up and killed the two that were working for him, Naruto seemed to snap, having a red glow around him as he slaughtered the rest of Gato's thugs, and finally Gato himself. Hearing this, the girls gasped in surprise and in mourning. That their fiancé had to deal with his first kill alone. They could only hope that Kurama was able to comfort the blonde in their place. We should probably head back and inform Kushina-sama of what we discovered here, Morgiana offered as she stood up from the table. It's going to be dark soon, Tsunami informed the pink-haired teen. Why don't you girls stay here the night, and head out first thing in the morning? That would be appreciated, Tsunami-san, Aqua replied. Very well. The brunette smiled. I will show you to the spare room. Barigekure, 2 days later. Did you find anything? Kushina asked as the 5 girls entered her office. We did, Kushina-sama, Zian answered. And you're not going to like it. What am I not going to like, Zian-chan? The red-haired Barakage inquired, narrowing her eyes slightly, feeling a sense of anxiety swelling up inside her. Konoha has Naruto-kun, Rory blatantly stated with a scowl. What? It's true, Kushina-sama, Aqua sighed. When we arrived in Wave, we met an old bridge builder whom had recently hired a team from Konoha. With that team was Naruto-kun. Slowly, the blue-haired teen relayed all that they had learned on their trip to Wave Country about Naruto. Neither of the women in the room could resist shedding a few tears that the blonde had to go through his first killing almost completely alone. Though the red-haired village leader was happy to hear that her son had a bridge named after him, to honor him. Did you learn who was on this team from Konoha? Kushina inquired. Yes, ma'am, the blue-haired teen replied. It was Team 7, comprised of Naruto-kun, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno, led by Kakashi Hatake. At the Jonin sensei's name, Kushina had shattered the corners of her desk where she was gripping it, causing the 5 girls to jump slightly. That bastard! She seethed. It was no coincidence that the masked Jonin was on the same team as her son, and not recognize him. Not to mention, Kakashi was the last person to have seen Naruto before he had disappeared that fateful night. It became clear that her late husband's former student had a hand in her son's kidnapping. What should we do, Kushina-sama? Kairi asked. We should go to Konoha, smash in their gates, and bring our beloved back home, Rory exclaimed, slamming her halberd down, creating cracks in the floor. No, Kushina replayed in an eerily calm voice. Contrast to her actions just seconds before. But Kushina-sama, they have Naruto-kun, the long black-haired teen argued. I know, Rory-chan, I know. Kushina sighed as she sat back down. Next month, Konoha will be hosting the Chunin exams. You 5 will be entering. But we're already Chunin, Zian pointed out, confused at where her soon-to-be mother-in-law was going with this. Though their rank was in name only, as in terms of actual combat prowess and technique, they were all at least mid to high Jonin. Konoha is unaware of your rank, so it is the perfect guise, Kushina stated. The main objective is going to be to find my Sochi. However, you must wait until you have entered the village and assess the situation. There is a small chance that the old bastard won't let Naruto-kun compete. Of course, Kushina-sama, Morgiana replied. We'll prepare for the exams and train hard to bring Naruto-kun back home with us. Very well. She smiled. I know this has been difficult, but soon, he will be back with us where he belongs, and Konoha will pay for their transgressions. One by one, the 5 girls departed the office to prepare for the next month, aiming to train extra hard to ensure their blonde lover returns to their arms once more, and to never let go. Though Rory and Morgiana still hoped to dish out some forms of revenge against the cesspool of a village. Konoha, 1 week later. Sakura let out a sigh as she approached her team's usual training ground. It had been exactly 1 week since they had returned to the village from their first C-rank mission, that had turned into an A rank, and throughout the entire week, she had been unable to even find Naruto at all. It was like he had completely disappeared into thin air. It was also concerning to her that her blonde teammate had not frequented the ramen stand either, which of course caused Ayam to worry as well. During the Pinkette's week-long break, Sakura had begun to frequent the ramen stand more and more, somewhat breaking her diet after her initial visit to the stand the day they had returned to the village. However, now she could understand why her blonde teammate loved the stuff. Though what she had learned from the ramen waitress when she inquired about Naruto still haunted her dreams at night, as Ayam had reluctantly explained a rather brief history about the blonde boy. The nights her and her father would find him bloodied and beaten in an alleyway, left to die. How for every year, for the past 6 years on the boy's birthday, her and her father would close down the shop and search the streets for the blonde, each time dreading what condition they would find him in. To make matters worse, they had learned the hard way that they couldn't take him to the hospital due to a majority of the staff refusing to treat the boy, and those that did had used it as an excuse to inflict more pain on him, thus forcing the father and daughter duo to do what they could to treat his injuries in the back of their own stand. With great reluctance, Ayam had recounted how they had found Naruto crucified, burned, poisoned, and severely mutilated. Though for some reason, within a day or two, he was always back to full health with his goofy smile and loud attitude, proclaiming he was going to be the Hokage and force everyone to acknowledge him. I wonder where he has been all week? Sakura mentally asked herself. I don't know. Inner Sakura sighed. Perhaps we should go to where he lives. Good idea, Inner. The Pinkette mentally nodded, though frowned slightly when she realized she didn't know where Naruto lived. Only that it was somewhere in the red light district, which didn't really do much to reduce the search area. On the other hand, she knew exactly where Sasuke lived, even though it wasn't hard due to the raven-haired teen residing in his clan's compound still. Even further, she knew everywhere he would go, and at which times due to the last Uchiha falling into a standard routine each day. What the Pinkette had not yet realized was that throughout the entire week, she hadn't once sought out the source of her obsession, instead focusing solely on finding Naruto and hanging out with Ayam when her search would turn up nothing. Of course, she couldn't say her week was not entirely uneventful, as a few days ago she had an uncomfortable confrontation with the purple-haired young woman who had greeted Naruto upon his return to the village. Flashback no Jutsu. Sakura had let out another sigh as she had spent the last few hours wandering around the village in hopes of finding her blonde teammate. Turning up another fruitless search, she had opted to visit Ichiraku's again, in hopes the blonde would turn up there. Well, that was half of the reason. She had yet to admit it to herself, but she had immediately grown to love the ramen from the stand. Not paying attention to anything in general, the Pinkette rounded the corner before feeling a slight pain at the base of her neck before her world turned black. Vaguely feeling someone pick her up and carrying her off into some unknown direction to her. Nearly half an hour later, did the young Pinkette return to the world of the living, only to find herself tied to a tree out in the middle of the forest. Quickly snapping her eyes open, she frantically began to look around her surroundings in an attempt to get her bearings. Ah, you're finally awake. A feminine voice spoke up from just behind her, just enough that they remained out of sight. Where am I? She asked, only to receive a sadistic giggle. You're in my personal playground, Pinky. The voice replied, getting closer to her. What do you want? I want to know why you've been looking for my Naruto-kun. The purple-haired snake mistress stated, rounding the tree the girl was tied to and standing in front of her, playing with a kunai that she held in her hands. What? Was the Pinkette's intelligent response. I didn't stutter, Pinky. Anko retorted, narrowing her eyes towards her prisoner. Why have you been looking for Naruto-kun? Aren't you supposed to be a fangirl for that duck-ass emo? I want to be his friend. The Pinkette replied in a soft voice as she hung her head, ignoring the jab at Sasuke, though loud enough for the snake mistress to hear, causing to narrow her eyes even more. And why the change of heart? Anko inquired. As I recall, you were a bitch towards him throughout the entire academy, and even after you were put on a team together. Don't know why the Gaki had a crush on you, when he could have done so much better. Sakura could only wince at her words, and the coldness in her voice, as well as a slight pain in her chest when the snake mistress told her that Naruto could have done better than her, in terms of girls to be interested in and have a crush on. He doesn't have a crush on me anymore. She all but whispered in sadness as the tears threatened to fall from her eyes. She didn't know why, but it hurt her to the core that she was no longer Sakura-chan to the blonde. Now, she was just simply Sakura. Good, maybe hope for the Gaki yet. Anko replied with no shame nor care if she hurt the Pinkette's feelings. But that still doesn't answer my question, why the sudden change of heart? It was something he said to me during our mission. Sakura replied, lifting her head to look the snake mistress in the eye. And I want to prove him wrong. I want to show him that there are others who care for him. Silence hung between them as Anko stared back at the pink-haired girl. She had already known all of this from her talk with Naruto when she had taken him aside to comfort him about taking his first life, all the while cursing Kakashi for not doing his job as the boy's sensei. Something about the masked Jonin had always rubbed her the wrong way, though to hear the Pinkette openly admit it without making any excuse truly surprised her. With a quick flick of her wrist, the snake mistress shot the kunai she was playing with towards the pink-haired girl, causing the poor girl to gasp in horror before the kunai embedded itself into the tree just to the side of her, effectively cutting the ropes that bound her, freeing her in the process. Though Sakura didn't have much time to enjoy the freedom as Anko was quickly upon her with another kunai in hand, pressed firmly against the Pinkette's throat. "Maybe there is hope for you yet, but mark my words, Pinky," the snake mistress hissed. "Naruto-kun is someone extremely precious to me, and if I hear of you hurting him in any way, consequences be damned, they will never find your body. Understand?" Sakura did the only thing she could do, and silently nod. "Good, now get out of here," Anko ordered, placing her kunai back into her holster. "Exit is that way." Sakura didn't need to be told, and quickly took off in the direction the snake mistress had pointed towards, not wanting to risk the snake mistress's wrath or ire. Flashback no jutsu dispel. The Pinkette still shuddered at her run-in with the snake mistress, knowing full well that the purple-haired woman would make good on her threat. Shaking herself from her inner musings, Sakura took the chance to look up as she entered the training ground, and to her surprise found Naruto leaning back against one of the 3 large posts, reading what appeared to be a scroll of some kind. For some unknown reason to her, she felt happy, and almost excited to see him again. "Good morning, Naruto." The Pinkette greeted a bit timidly, as a small part of her was nervous, having not seen him in a week. At first, the blonde didn't reply, causing the Pinkette to frown before he rolled up the scroll he had been reading and turned to meet her. "Morning, Sakura," he greeted in return, though she still winced at the lack of chan at the end of her name. "We've always wanted him to leave us alone and stop pestering us for dates, and now that he has it just feels like something is missing," Inner commented in a depressed tone. "I know, brings a whole new meaning to the phrase be careful what you wish for, doesn't it?" I haven't seen you all week," she tentatively commented, earning a raised eyebrow from the blonde. "I've been busy," was all Naruto responded with, though it wasn't a lie. Kurama had set to work on the blonde's training right away, focusing on Fuinjutsu, knowing a particular seal that would give the boy some freedom to move around without worrying about the old monkey spying on him, as both knew the Hokage had kept watch over the boy through that crystal ball the old man kept in his office. Fortunately, the fox knew the one weakness the crystal ball had. It focused solely on a single chakra signature. In Naruto's case, it was the fox's. So Kurama had come up with an ingenious idea to throw off the old monkey. A simple combination between a blood clone and a chakra seal. It had taken a bit of trial and error for the blonde to get it down right, with the right mixture of chakra into the blood to form a fully functional and sentient copy of himself that was far more durable than a standard shadow clone. That being done, the Kyuubi had then pushed a large amount of his chakra into the blood clone to ensure the crystal ball would focus on the clone and not his actual vessel. Lastly, Naruto had placed the seal on himself, once he had perfected it, which had a sort of chakra dampening effect, making it near impossible for sensors to focus in on his chakra signature unless he released far too much of it within a sensor's range. Fortunately, that was no issue during his later training towards the end of the week, as Naruto had secluded himself in the Forest of Death. Though he mentally shuddered when Anko would eventually find out that he had been training in her playground without her. "I see," was all Sakura replied with as she sat down on the other side of the post, awaiting the final 2 members of their team. Though she already knew Kakashi was going to be late again, as he always was. As silence hung between the two, Naruto had once again pulled out the scroll and began reading over it once more. It wasn't anything special, just a scroll about improved chakra control exercises and other things he could do to increase the control over his massive chakra reserve, as well as a few jutsus that he could add to his arsenal. Normally, he wouldn't have been able to gain access to such a scroll, as the library, just like countless other businesses within the village, would refuse him access, despite it being illegal to refuse a Konoha shinobi service. However, a simple henge had solved that issue, and with his blood clone wandering around, it had been easy to fool the librarian and various other shops, allowing the blonde to get what he required and to actually have some actual home-cooked meals. Not that he didn't like ramen, hell, he loved the stuff, but for the first time in 7 years, he was able to enjoy a dish of an old recipe his mother would make them, thanks to Kurama's help of reciting the recipe to him. Though he knew he would have to make it up to Ayam for not coming by the ramen stand all week, no doubt worrying about him, with their past experiences of him being hunted down and attacked. This of course caused him to frown slightly. The blonde didn't like it when those who he held close were worried or in pain. "We should stop by after training today," Kurama put in, sensing the thoughts his container had. "You know that girl sees you as a little brother." "Yeah," the blonde mentally agreed. Another half hour passed between them in silence while Naruto continued to read from his scroll. Meanwhile, Sakura would still glances at the blonde, curious as to what the scroll was about. However, before she could vocalize her question, the blonde quickly rolled the scroll up and stuffed it into one of his pouches, before leaning back against the post. What was that? She never got to finish her thought as Sasuke entered the training field. Smiling, she wished the raven-haired teen a good morning, only for the last Uchiha to merely scoff at her, prompting her to frown at his dismissal of her. Meanwhile, the Uchiha continued to not so silently complain about how the librarian had come over to his compound this morning and began pestering him about a scroll he had supposedly borrowed that needed to be returned by the end of the week. The pinkette had picked up on his grumbling and cast a sideways glance towards her blonde teammate in suspicion. You don't think that Naruto-kun hinged into Sasuke to get that scroll? The pinkette mentally inquired. I think he did. He's been reading it all morning, and as soon as Sasuke arrived he put it away. Iner commented before seemingly pondering something else. What if this wasn't the first time Naruto-kun hinged into Sasuke? What do you mean? Think back to shortly after we passed the bell test, that moment on the park bench. Didn't Sasuke seem out of character then? Sakura thought on that for a few seconds. The more she thought about one of her most precious memories with the raven-haired boy, the more it began to change as she began to imagine Naruto sitting in Sasuke's place. Her eyes widening in realization. It wasn't Sasuke at all, it was Naruto-kun hinged as Sasuke. She replied to her inner self, who merely mentally nodded in agreement. You know, team, it's considered polite to at least return a greeting. Naruto spoke up, breaking Sakura from her thoughts. Or didn't your mother never teach you any manners? At least I had a mother, though. The Uchiha retorted with a smug look on his face, taking a stab at the blonde being an orphan, as it was well known that the boy's parents were killed during the Kyuubi attack 14 years ago. Sakura, on the other hand, frowned at the boy's taunt, causing her to want to chastise her crush of being such a jerk to try and use Naruto's lack of parents as a taunt, though stopped herself when she saw the blonde merely smirk in response, as if he knew something they didn't. However, one thought shot through her mind. Wait, was I really going to defend Naruto-kun from what Sasuke said? She asked herself, before her eyes widened in surprise. It appeared that her week-long search for her blonde teammate had acted as a sort of detox for her in regards to her obsession with the Uchiha, allowing her to finally compare the two boys on her team with a clear mind. We were. Iner replied, not commenting on her outer self referring to the blonde with the kun suffix and the lack of said suffix to the Uchiha's name for the past few minutes, since Sasuke had arrived to the training grounds. Though before both Sakuras could continue their mental conversation, Naruto broke them out of their thoughts. Really, that old taunt? I guess it is true about the great Uchiha clan. The blonde stated with a lazy sigh. Can't create anything new, always have to steal it from somewhere else. This of course caused the raven-haired teen to seethe in anger, as the blonde in front of him had dared insult him and his clan. You're just jealous of my Sharingan's power, Sasuke defiantly stated. Yeah? The blonde scoffed before proceeding to flip off the Uchiha, which only served to infuriate the raven-haired boy even further. Copy this with your pink eye. Despite herself, Sakura couldn't help but giggle to herself at Naruto's comeback, though had managed to cover it in a cough to not attract the attention of her two teammates. However, before things could escalate further, a poof of smoke erupted from the top of one of the training posts, revealing the masked Jonin reading his trademark orange book. Well, I see my lovely genin are lively this morning, Kakashi commented in his usual lazy tone as he casually put away his book. What are we going to work on today, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked, looking up at the masked Jonin. Kakashi was silent for a moment as he took in his three students before him. He could see that Sasuke was about ready to attack Naruto for what the blonde had taunted the last Uchiha with. Though the masked Jonin was surprised to see that Naruto did not rise to the bait and instead had flipped it around on Sasuke, which was slightly concerning, causing the Jonin to frown slightly. Normally Naruto would have lashed out at Sasuke, but instead he remained calm and had managed to get under Sasuke's skin. He thought to himself, before turning his attention back to the rest of Team 7. Today we will be working on individual exercises, Kakashi stated with a nice smile as he produced 3 scrolls. Naruto, I want you to practice the leaf-cutting exercise. Sakura, with your precise chakra control, I want you to focus on medical ninjutsus. Naruto said nothing as he took the scroll that was offered to him, mentally scoffing at how badly the silver-haired man hid his agenda. Sure, if he was still under the effects of the seals, the blonde would have aided up that this was actual training. Now though, he saw it for exactly what it was. Stunting his growth to keep him from growing too strong, in case he needed to be put down. Guess I'd better struggle all day with this, just so he doesn't get suspicious. the blonde thought to himself, earning a mental nod from the large fox. What about me? Sasuke demanded, looking to the masked Jonin. I have some jutsus for you to work on, Kakashi replied with a nice smile. So you will come with me. Sakura, Naruto, stay here and work on your own exercises. Hi Kakashi-sensei. Both replied. Kakashi watched as Naruto made his way over to the tree line at the edge of the training field and began to gather leaves required for his exercise, while Sakura stayed near the training posts. Satisfied that the two had begun with their respective scrolls, the masked Jonin led the last Uchiha to the very far end of the training field, well away from the other two. Can't wait to stick it to that bastard, Naruto thought to himself, imagining various ways to punish the silver-haired bastard. One of which included the same technique the man had used on the boy during the bell test. Barigakure. The sound of steel clashing against steel echoed across the massive training field as the two combatants repeatedly traded blows with one another at blinding speeds. Which was surprising considering the size of the blade the smaller of the two wielded effortlessly. Very good, Zion-chan. The red-haired woman complimented her training partner. It seems you truly are worthy to wield Kubikura Bocho. Thank you, Kushina-sensei. The black-haired teen panted, though didn't relax her stance. You never did tell me how you came across it, Kushina reminded as she charged forward with her own blade, bringing it down hard on the larger blade, causing the black-haired girl to grunt under the blow. After blocking the blow, Zion pivoted the blade and deflected the rest of the energy off to the left, giving her an opening to counter the red-haired woman. Seeing the opening, the black-haired girl charged forward only to suddenly halt her attack as her instincts told her to jump back. Wisely listening to them, she narrowly avoided a second attack from the red-haired woman, whom had shifted her blade into a reverse grip position, using the momentum of the deflection to spin her around in the air. Skillfully, Zion landed a good 6 feet away from where she once was, her massive blade poised in a defensive position. Very good, Zion-chan, very good. Kushina praised as she moved into a relaxed stance, causing the black-haired girl to frown, seeing that their training session was coming to an end. I can still go on, Kushina-sensei. Zion protested, not wanting to stop training. She had to get stronger, to bring Naruto back home. However, her body betrayed her as it gave out, causing her to fall to one knee. Zion-chan. Kushina sighed as she walked over to the downed teen and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. No one wants my Sochi back more than me, believe me. But it won't do you or him any good if your body is broken because you don't know when to stop and allow your body to heal. Zion could only look down at the ground, tears forming in her eyes as she reflected on her soon-to-be mother-in-law's words. Nodding in understanding as she raised her head to meet the red-haired woman's eyes. By this time next month, Naruto-kun will be back home where he belongs, and we will have a large celebration for his return. Kushina smiled, bringing the black-haired teen into a hug, calming her down before the girl's emotions got too out of control. We will continue training in 2 days. In the meantime, rest and allow your body to recover. Hi, Kushina-sensei. Zion panted, rubbing away the tears that had stained her cheeks. Now, you never did tell me how you came to wield Kubikura Bocho. Well, it was when we were leaving Wave Country. Zion began. Flashback no jutsu. Having bid their farewells to Tsunami and her family, the 5 girls had set off towards the docks to secure a boat back to their home village. Eager to tell Kushina the news that they had finally found where Naruto was and get him back. As they made their way across the small village, returning greetings to the various villagers, Zion had suddenly stopped and looked off in what appeared to be a random direction. You okay, Zion-chan? Kairi asked, seeing her friend and future sister-wife stop. Not saying anything, the short-haired girl took off in the direction she had been staring in, prompting the others to follow after her. Not understanding why their friend had suddenly taken off without a word. After only a handful of minutes running, they found their answer as Zion had stopped in front of 2 fresh graves. One of which had a broken mask, and the other a massive sword impaled into the ground. Naruto-kun dug these. Aqua stated as she approached the 2 graves, causing a wave of sadness to wash over the girls, followed by further spite towards the masked Jonin that was supposed to be their beloved sensei. That bastard Hatake didn't even want to honor a fallen enemy. Morgiana spat the man's name in disgust, as a similar feeling was felt amongst the others, having learned that the masked Jonin had refused to help bury the 2 deceased foes, and had repeatedly gave his disapproval towards Naruto for doing so. The mask must have belonged to Hakusan, Kairi stated as she knelt before the grave, offering a silent prayer to the fallen boy. And this must have been Zabuza's, Rory commented as she looked at the grave in front of the massive blade. Zion, however, remained silent as she stood before Zabuza's grave. her eyes on the large sword that marked his gravestone. Folding her hands together, she bowed her head in respect to the fallen swordsman before slowly reaching out and grabbing hold of the handle of the massive blade. She had expected it to be heavy, considering its size. But to her surprise, it was as light as a feather, allowing her to swing it effortlessly. The rest of the girls watched as their short black-haired girl lifted the blade out of the ground and gave it a few good swings before holding it with both hands to admire its beauty. "It looks like Kubikura Bocho has recognized you as its new wielder, Xian-chan," Aqua commented. With their soon-to-be mother-in-law and acclaimed swordswoman herself, the 5 girls were well versed in the tales of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, and the importance of their sentient blades, and how said blades chose its new wielder. "I understand," Xian said with a smile on her face as she spoke to the blade, before turning and looking towards the other girls. "Kubikura Bocho has acknowledged me as its wielder, so that I can protect those dear to me." Securing the large blade to her back, Xian turned around once more and offered a final prayer of respect towards the swordsman before turning and walking away with the rest of the girls, set on returning home to give the Barakage the news about her son. Flashback no Jutsu Dispel. And that is what happened. Xian finished her tale while stroking the blade with her hand. "I promised Kubikura Bocho that I would use him to bring back Naruto-kun and protect our family and village. A bond with a legendary sword is an extraordinary thing, and I know you will do us proud, Xian-chan." Kushina smiled. "Now head home and rest up." "Hi, Kushina-sensei." The black-haired girl bowed before departing the training field. Konoha, hours later. It had been a long and boring 6 hours of training for the young blonde as he continued to fake struggling with the leaf-cutting exercise. Though it seemed that the bastard of a sensei was pleased with his lack of progress, despite his words of disappointment in Naruto. "Well, I must say all of you did well today." Kakashi gave his usual eye smile. "Be sure to meet back here tomorrow at 7 a.m. Not waiting for a reply, the masked jonin disappeared into another poof of smoke, leaving the 3 genin alone. Letting out a small sigh, the blonde genin stood up from where he was sitting, though still acting as if he was exhausted from the training exercises he was doing, knowing full well Kakashi liked to disappear only to spy on them from a distance. Naruto-kun, Naruto," Sakura called out, catching his attention as he raised an eyebrow in regards to her slip-up. Even Sasuke had shot the Pinkette a confused look, as the emo was expecting her to pester him for a date once more. "What is it, Sakura?" the blonde inquired, a little curious at his pink-haired teammate's sudden focus on him. "I was wondering if you would like to get some ramen?" The Pinkette blushed as she realized it sounded like she was asking her blonde teammate out on a date. "I was about to head there now," Naruto honestly replied. "But since when do you eat ramen? Aren't you on a diet?" "I've been eating there all week," Sakura answered, "while I was looking for you. And I've kind of ended my diet," she continued. "Accept her offer, Kit." Kurama spoke up as he watched the interaction between the two. "Kurama?" the blonde mentally questioned. "It's clear she's been looking for you all week since we detected her following you the day we returned," the fox explained. "Notice how she hasn't even asked the Uchiha bastard for a date all afternoon, yet she is asking you to join her." "I guess." The blonde relented, though still doubtful of the Pinkette's intentions. "I know your crush on her was based off of her hair subconsciously reminding you of Morgiana-chan, but I can feel that she truly wants to be friends with you," Kurama continued, sensing the blonde's doubt. "I say give her another chance. May be nice to have an actual friend on the team while we are still here." "All right for ball, you made your point." "Love you too, brat," the fox retorted with a scoff, though smiled nonetheless. "All right, Sakura, let's go," Naruto replied with a smile, causing the Pinkette to blush a little before nodding and joining the blonde. Leaving behind a dumbstruck Uchiha whom had just witnessed what had happened and still didn't understand how one of his annoying fangirls had completely ignored him all day, and then asked the blonde dope out for a lunch date. Did that really just happen? He thought to himself. Currently the young blonde was regretting his love of ramen as a very upset ramen waitress glared down at him, causing him to shrink further into the stool he was seated in. While Sakura was attempting, and failing at holding a giggle into herself at the interaction between the two. The Pinkette knew that Iam had been beyond worried for the blonde when he hadn't come by for an entire week. Immediately believing the worst had finally happened. "Kit, you better apologize to her," Kurama barked from inside the boy's mind, clearly worried about what the girl would do to his host. "Because I have never seen a woman that angry before. Well, maybe your mother, but regardless. Apologize now." "Do you have any idea of how worried I was for you, Naruto-kun?" I am ground out as tears began to form in her eyes. I had feared that the worst had finally happened. So sorry, I am Chan. The blonde squeaked out as the brunette girl continued to glare down at him. It's just that after my last mission, something happened that I really needed time to myself to figure out. You could have at least stopped by and let us know you were fine. The waitress continued to berate the young blonde. Even Sakura-san here has been looking for you all week. This of course caught the blonde's attention, to learn that the pink-haired girl had been looking for him all week, prompting him to give her a questioning look, which elicited a slight blush from the pinkette. As he took in her reaction, he noticed a small bandage on her right bicep, making him wonder what had happened. As far as he knew, she had done nothing that would have caused an injury during training. Ayam-san. Sakura interrupted the waitress's rant. Could we perhaps get something to eat before you continue to scare Naruto? Ayam looked between the blonde boy and the pink-haired girl for a moment before turning her attention back towards her little brother figure. Don't think you are off the hook yet for scaring us like that, she warned, before she seemingly flipped a switch and turned to Sakura with a cheerful expression. The usual, Sakura-san? Hi. The pinkette smiled. And I already know what you want, Naruto-kun. The ramen waitress stated before disappearing into the kitchen, leaving the two genin alone in an awkward silence, as neither really knew what to say. So, I take it you hinged as Sasuke to get the scroll you were reading this morning? Sakura tentatively asked, breaking the awkward silence. Yeah. He answered honestly with a slight shrug. Don't worry, I will return it before the due date so the team doesn't get in trouble. This wasn't the first time you hinged as Sasuke, was it? She inquired. No. The blonde sighed, knowing where this was going. On the bench, after the bell test, she began, blushing slightly. That was you, wasn't it? Ha ha, busted kid. Kurama laughed from the back of the boy's mind. Only took her how many weeks? Naruto responded in a sarcastic tone. Damn teen would have never said that to her. Better late than never, kid. Yeah, that was me. He sighed, and waited for the pinkette to physically lash out, however it never came, causing him to look towards his teammate in confusion. I figured, since Sasuke would never say something like that, she responded, looking down at the counter, a slight frown on her face as she came to a small realization that the boy she had a crush on for so long would never be the romantic she had dreamed of him being. Yet Naruto had, causing her to blush lightly, stealing a glance at the blonde next to her. Hey kid, have you noticed something about her speech pattern? Kurama inquired, prompting the blonde to mentally cock an eyebrow in thought. No, what? Naruto replied to his older brother figure. She has dropped the "kun" suffix from the Uchiha brat's name. The fox pointed out, causing the blonde to slightly widen his eyes. And she has almost used it on you, twice now. You're right. He mentally responded. I suppose you want to know why I hinged as Sasuke. It was more of a statement than a question, as he figured Sakura would be curious as to why he had decided to hinge as the brooding emo, though he had hinged as other random civilians and shinobi as well throughout the week. No, I know why. The pinkette sighed. It's because a lot of the businesses in the village will either throw you out, or charge you double, or triple the standard price. How do you know this? Naruto asked, though he already knew the answer. 3 days ago, I got to know you, Sakura replied, rubbing her right bicep where her bandage was, giving the blonde a clear idea of what had happened, causing his heart to sink into his stomach. After I couldn't find you, I decided to spend a day in your shoes. Flashback no jutsu. Sakura let out a long sigh as she leaned up against the side of a building. It had been 4 days since they had returned from Wave, and she had not seen any trace of her blonde teammate. To be honest, it was starting to get frustrating for the pink-haired girl. She was also growing more and more concerned, after listening to how Ayam and her father had found the boy every so often over the past few years. Shuddering slightly as she recalled some of the gruesome ways they father and daughter duo would find the poor boy, the ramen waitress had reluctantly divulged. I have an idea. She began, wondering how her inner self would react. What's that outer? Instead of replying, the pinkette ducked into an alleyway and ensured no one could see her before she made a ram seal. Immediately, a cloud of smoke obscured her body for a split second, before it dispersed, leaving a blonde-haired teen boy in a horrendous orange jumpsuit in its wake. You can't be serious! Inner exclaimed, immediately concerned for what her outer self had planned. I am. Sakura, now hinged as Naruto mentally replied. If I can't find him to talk to him, then I can walk a day in his shoes and get a look into his daily life. But you heard what the villagers said about Naruto. What if they think you are him and attack you? That's the idea. I want them to think I am Naruto. Sakura frowned as she looked over her henge. As far as she could tell, it was spot on. Just be careful, Outer. Inner stated in concern, still not liking this plan. Especially after hearing from the ramen waitress what had happened to the poor boy in the past. You heard what Ayam-san had said about how her and her father has found him before. I know, Inner, I know. Sakura sighed before taking a deep breath and left the alleyway, placing her/his hands in her/his jacket. Knowing that she couldn't accurately portray his mannerisms nor imitate his voice, the pinkette had opted to merely stay quiet and walk around. The change was almost immediate as soon as she stepped back onto the main street. All the glares directed at her made her want to shrink back into the alleyway and hide, but she forced herself to carry on. She needed to experience this so she could better understand Naruto. As she continued to walk through the street, she saw people whispering to one another while gesturing towards her. Mothers pulling their kids away from her, telling them not to go anywhere near the demon child. As the day wore on, Naruto wandered through the streets and various shops. Getting kicked out of most, and if they did let him in, the owner would charge him double or triple the asking price, stating it was a demon tax, causing the pinkette to frown. She did her best not to cause further trouble for her blonde teammate, though had still managed to get him banned from a few of the places that had allowed her in, making her feel slightly guilty. Hours later. Slowly, the sun began to set, basking the village in an orange glow as the pinkette still hinged as the young blonde made her way back towards the alleyway she had started in. Lost in thought of everything she had experienced throughout the day. To think, he lives this every day. Inner commented with a solemn understanding of just how much pain and hate the blonde boy has to contend with on a daily basis. How does he do it? The pinkette wondered absent-mindedly. After the first few minutes I wanted to run and hide away from it all. However, her musing was cut short as a kunai grazed her right arm, eliciting a yelp in pain from the hinged cherry blossom. Turning, she saw a small mob of people gathering behind her with some Chunin-level shinobis among them. There he is! One from the mob cried out. Get him! Kill him! Avenge the Yondaime! Shit! She mentally screamed out as she broke out in a run, avoiding additional projectiles that were being thrown in her direction. As the minutes ticked by, she was becoming more and more tired, not having the same stamina as her two teammates, and as she got more and more tired, the projectiles the mob were throwing at her got closer and closer, having nearly hit her countless times. I need a way out, Sakura thought in a panic as she looked around for anything she could use. Seeing a tree just ahead, she quickly came up with a plan. Taking a cautious look behind her, she began to time it. As soon as one of the Chunin in the crowd threw one of their kunai, she substituted herself with a log and disappeared into the tree, quickly dropping her henge. Damn it! A yell could be heard from one of the nameless pursuers. The demon got away again. Watching as the mob slowly began to disperse, upset that their prey had eluded them once more as they grumbled to one another about how they would get the demon brat next time. Letting out a sigh of relief, Sakura dropped down from the tree and lingered for a moment before leaving in the opposite direction that a majority of the mob left in, unaware of a pair of blue eyes that had been watching her. Flashback no jutsu dispel. What you did was incredibly reckless, Sakura. The blonde frowned after the pinkette had finished her explanation. Sakura was about to retort before he held up his hand to prevent her from saying anything. But I thank you for actually trying to understand my life. You're welcome, she replied softly. Just promise me you will never do that again, he requested with a serious look in his eyes that she had never seen before, prompting her to simply nod her head in agreement. If you really want to come talk to me, my apartment is in the red light district, top floor, all the way to the end. Just look for the graffiti. Sakura frowned at this, but nodded nonetheless, becoming further disappointed in the villager's actions. Weighing her options, she decided to ask the question that was foremost on her mind ever since his comment in Wave. Naruto, why do the villagers hate you? She asked bluntly. Maybe they don't like my pranks, he offhandedly commented, earning another frown from the pinkette. He's hiding something, Inner commented with a mental frown, earning a nod from her outer self. Your pranks aren't that bad to get the entire village to hate you, she commented, causing him to let out a soft sigh. Sorry, but there is a law surrounding it, he answered in a low tone. To reveal it would be a death sentence for you. Nodding slightly, she decided to back off from the subject for now, though his answer only got her more curious as to what it could be that required such a law to surround her blonde teammate. Though before she could reply to the blonde, Ayam returned with their bowls and placed them in front of the two genins. Here you go, the brunette happily stated. Thank you, Both responded as they began to dig into their respective bowls. The two ate in silence as Ayam went to tend to other customers that began to filter into the ramen stand. After they finished, the two paid for their meals and bid the brunette waitress farewell, with Naruto promising that he would not disappear like that again. You should leave her a hint, Kurama commented as the two silently walked away from the ramen stand. Like your birthday. You sure? Naruto inquired with a mental frown. I thought the whole reason of giving her a second chance was to have a friend on the team while I am still here. If she learns the truth, she could. If she is smart enough to figure it out, she is smart enough to know we are two different entities. The fox replied, cutting off the blonde. I am not saying reveal our close friendship or anything. I guess I will see you tomorrow? Sakura asked, breaking the blonde from his inner conversation with his tenant. Yeah. He nodded, turning to leave before he paused. By the way, my birthday is October 10th. This caught the pinkette off guard as she watched the blonde walk away from her. Frowning, she pondered why he would give her such a mundane bit of information about him as she walked in the direction of her home. Why did he tell us his birthday? Inner inquired. It's not like it's coming up soon or anything. No, it has to mean something, Sakura mentally replied. Why does that date sound familiar? Frowning further, she made a detour towards the village library. She knew there was a reason that Naruto had told her his birthday, and it wasn't because he was expecting a birthday party when it rolled around. Something in her gut told her that it had something to do with why the villagers hated him. Hokage Tower. Anything new to report? The elder village leader asked as the silver-haired Jonin entered his office, reading his usual orange book. He is still more subdued since after the mission, not as loud as he used to be, Kakashi replied lazily, not looking up from his book. He still struggles on chakra control exercises. He was unable to complete the leaf-cutting exercise today. That is good, Hiruzen stated as he took a puff from his pipe. We don't want our weapon to get too strong before he is mentally broken and completely loyal to this village. Kakashi merely nodded in agreement. He knew full well the damage the demon could cause if he gained too much power before he was mentally conditioned to be the village's weapon, especially if he decided to retaliate against the villagers' attacks on him. Any other developments with your team? Since Sasuke has unlocked his Sharingan finally, I began to train him to use it. Hopefully within a few months I can start training him on how to use it to subdue other Jinchuriki or Biju. Good. Hiruzen nodded in approval. Shame Itachi had to massacre the entire clan. We could use more matured Sharingan users to keep the weapon subdued. Has Sasuke shown any interest in reviving his clan? No, Hokage-sama. The masked Jonin sighed, closing his book. His sole goal right now is to avenge his clan. The elder man frowned at that. He had hoped the last Uchiha in the village would have at least have a few illegitimate kids running around with the sheer amount of fangirls the boy had. A few of which had blatantly stated they wanted to bear his children. Just make sure he is ready. The last thing we need is for the boy to die before he can sire any children, the Hokage stated. Anything else? There has been a small development with the Haruno girl. And that is? Since the incident in Wave, she has been consciously seeking out the Jinchuriki. Do you suspect they are romantically involved? The elder man asked. It was no secret that the blonde Jinchuriki had a crush on the pink-haired girl. If the two were romantically involved with one another, he would have to end it, possibly by disposing of the girl as she was more expandable than the weapon. However, the more he thought about it, the more he considered how this development could work in his favor. No, Kakashi replied. It seems his crush on her has died in Wave. Her goal, however, is to prove to him that there are others who would care if something were to happen to him. Should I intervene? No, Hiruzen answered. Allow her to continue. We could use this to our advantage. How so, Hokage-sama? If they were to actually form an emotional bond with one another, we can exploit that bond to speed up the process of breaking his mind. Hiruzen grinned darkly. I want you to start pairing them together on assignments. Subtly nudge them closer together, but don't force it. And if they do become romantic? I will allow it for a time, to ensure that bond is set. The Hokage replied, the grin still on his face as he imagined how his current plan would turn out in the village's favor. Once the bond is set, we will remove the Haruno girl, allowing the weapon's mind to completely break. Kakashi frowned slightly, not wanting to toss away a potential kunoichi for the village, but it was for the greater good of the village. So it was an acceptable sacrifice to ensure Konoha took its rightful place as the strongest of all the villages. It will be done, Hokage-sama. He bowed before departing the office, leaving the village leader alone with his thoughts. A malicious grin on his face, the elder village leader took out a single black notebook from a safe under his desk and began to detail his current plan involving the young pink-haired girl and the village weapon. It was risky to have all of the village's dark secrets he had ordered in a single place, but the elder man knew there was a chance he would not see his plan to fruition, and it would fall to his successor to see it to the end. And this book would guide them along the path to make Konoha the greatest of all the hidden villages. Once his successor fully believed in the will of fire. Forgive me, Sakura Haruno, Hiruzen thought to himself. But your sacrifice is necessary for the greater good of Konoha when the time is right. The next morning, 7 a.m. In a word, Sakura was tired. She had stayed up well into the early morning hours combing over the scrolls, books, and various other newspaper clippings that she had borrowed from the village library. All relating to the date Naruto had given her, and what she had discovered from the newspaper clippings had made her heart sink. The same night her blonde teammate was born, the Kyuubi had attacked the village. She knew the story well enough of how the Yondaime Hokage had valiantly fought against the massive demon fox and had killed it at the cost of his own life to preserve Konoha and its people. However, she had found irregularities between the newspaper clippings and the lessons from the academy. Realizing they didn't match up. There was also the fact that the villagers had called her, when she was henged as Naruto, a demon or a demon child. That was what had prompted her to look up scrolls about Biju. Learning that they were constructs made purely of chakra and thus, unable to be killed by any known means. Even if the Biju would sustain enough damage to disperse, it would only reform some time later. As she further researched, she came across the bit of information that made her body run cold. The only way to defeat a Biju was to seal it within a newborn child that had yet to form any chakra coils. It was then that everything clicked together. Naruto had the Kyuubi sealed within him. With that new knowledge, the Pinkette had quickly scrounged for any information regarding Jinchuriki. Learning that with the exception of Kumogakure and Barigakure, nearly every hidden village that had one had treated their Jinchuriki as if they were worse than trash, and Konoha was no different. The reason why the villages would do this was just as horrifying. They wanted to break the Jinchuriki's mind and strip them of their humanity, turning them into mindless weapons to be pointed at the village's enemies. However, there was one bit of information that the Pinkette had come across that had froze her very soul. A discovery made by pure accident. Setting an empty glass on top of one of the newspaper articles that one brave or stupid reporter had managed to snap an up-close picture of the rampaging Kyuubi, the Pinkette had saw something odd with the beast's eyes. While it was difficult to make out through the pixelated photo, she could make out the markings of an advanced Sharingan eye. This accidental discovery had sent the Pinkette on another round of research, looking up scrolls and such about the Sharingan eye and its advanced forms. From what she had learned of Biju themselves, she knew that the chakra beasts themselves held no dojutsu. So upon reading up on the various forms of the Sharingan that the library had, she had learned that the Manjiki Sharingan is capable of casting powerful genjutsu over its target that would allow the wielder to control their victim. Furthermore, she had learned that one such Mangekyo wielder by the name of Madara Uchiha was capable of asserting complete control over the Kyuubi. Piecing the pieces together, she had come to the conclusion, as unlikely as it was, that the Kyuubi had been forced to attack the village that night. Though for what reasons she didn't know. Letting out a sigh, she leaned her head back on the training post. Desperately wanting to close her eyes and fall asleep, but resisted all the same. She wanted to, needed to talk to Naruto about what she had learned. Praying to Kami that the blonde would arrive before the rest of her team. Fortunately, her prayers were answered as she heard the sound of footsteps approaching her locations. Looking up, she saw her blonde teammate. Standing up, she brushed the dirt off her clothing before turning to greet the blonde. "Morning, Sakura," Naruto greeted. "Did you sleep?" He never got to finish as the Pinkette wrapped him in a hug, burying her face into the crook of his neck, catching the young blonde by surprise by such an action. Though he knew why. "You found out, didn't you?" he asked, earning a nod from the girl as she broke away from the hug. "I did some research last night about the date you gave me," she replied as she took a step back, looking down at the ground as she tried to form how she was going to approach the subject. "I know now why most of the villagers hate you." "I see," was all Naruto answered with. "But I don't think differently of you," Sakura quickly reassured. "I know," he chuckled. "Otherwise you wouldn't have hugged me like you did, Sakura-chan." Upon hearing the chan suffix added to her name once more, the Pinkette's heart fluttered with joy. A few weeks ago, she would argue as to why she felt this way, but now, she knew exactly why. She missed the blonde referring to her in such an affectionate manner. Her week-long search for the blonde, her meeting with the crazy snake lady, and her experience living a day as him had opened her eyes and allowed her to view the blonde teen in a new light. There was something else, she stated, her voice low as if she didn't want anyone else to hear what she was about to say. This of course caught the blonde's attention as he looked to her, waiting for her to continue. What is it? I think it was controlled that night. She all but whispered, putting an emphasis on the word it so Naruto knew exactly who she was talking about. Konoha, 4 weeks later. Naruto couldn't exactly place his finger on it, but something seemed off with his supposed sensei as of late. For the past few weeks, the masked Jonin had constantly paired Sakura up with the blonde for random things that at first didn't seem like nothing. Having Sakura merely help the boy with various chakra exercises, or maybe a small task during one of their many D-rank missions within the village. But the constant consistency of it made the blonde Jinchuriki question the silver-haired man's motives. Sakura had seemed to notice this as well, as she cast her blonde teammate a confused look whenever Kakashi had instructed her to aid Naruto. Not that she minded being with her blonde teammate that she had forged an actual friendship with, she just found it odd that her sensei was requiring her to always be around him for any little thing. Alright, that's it for today, my cute little genin. The masked Jonin called out as he stood up from where he was sitting the entire time while the three were wrapping up their latest D-rank mission. Be sure to be here bright and early tomorrow morning. Hey Kakashi-sensei. The blonde called out, catching the Jonin's attention, though he blanched on the inside to have to call the man by that just to keep up his appearance. Do you have any extra training I can do? Kakashi merely frowned before replying. I'm afraid not right now, maybe later. In truth, he didn't want to train the boy any more than what was required or unless the Hokage deemed it necessary for more training. Always using the promise of new jutsus and techniques as a carrot on a stick to string the weapon along. As it was, he was barely skilled enough to handle the upcoming exams. Of course there was no chance of the blonde Jinchuriki being promoted, he was merely there to support the Uchiha. All the boy had to do was survive the tests. Ah, okay Kakashi-sensei. The blonde whined while kicking some dirt. Guess I'll just go get some ramen. See ya tomorrow. Kurama, please kill me. He mentally cried anime tears at having to put on this act. Just overload my coils with your chakra and burn me alive from the inside. Suck it up, Kit. The fox retorted, rolling its eyes at the young teen's antics. Won't be long before we can escape this cesspool and get you back where you belong. Hey Naruto, wait up! A voice called from behind him. Turning, he saw his pink-haired teammate running to catch up with him. What's up, Sakura-chan? The blonde asked, tilting his head to the side slightly. Don't what's up me, baka. The pinkette chastised. You know I always go with you for ramen. Now come on, Ayam-san is probably waiting for us. Chuckling, the blonde Jinchuriki scratched the back of his head before he followed after Sakura, while Kakashi and Sasuke merely looked on. The latter still not sure of what was going on with his teammates. Wondering what had happened that the annoying fangirl was now chasing after the blonde. Not that he cared, he was glad she was focusing on someone else other than him. Kakashi on the other hand had a smirk hidden under his mask. Everything is going as planned, he thought to himself. Just need to push them a little more and Hokage-sama can initiate the next phase of his plan. All for the good of Konoha. Come on Sasuke, I have some training for your Sharingan, he stated as he led the last Uchiha further into the training field. Sakura and Naruto. Naruto, does Kakashi-sensei seem weird to you lately? The pinkette asked as they approached the ramen stand that had become a natural hangout for the two of them. You mean that it feels like he is purposely putting the two of us together for the past few weeks? The blonde clarified, his tone carrying a weight of seriousness to it. At the same time, he also activated the seal on him to distort his chakra signature to prevent the old man from spying on their conversation. Exactly. She frowned as the two of them took their seats inside the stand next to each other and placed their usual orders. It felt like he was purposely putting us together, but not in a sense to improve teamwork. It felt off to me as well. Naruto nodded in agreement. Almost like it was forced. What, are you implying that I am bad company? The pinkette teased. Oh, the worst. The blonde rolled his eyes in sarcasm, earning a giggle from the pink-haired girl. Here you two go. Ayam piped up, placing 2 bowls of ramen in front of the duo. Thanks Ayam-ne-chan. Naruto smiled, earning a blush from the ramen waitress. So how was your day so far? The brunette inquired her 2 usual customers. More D-rank chores that civilians are too lazy to do themselves. Naruto half complained while he ate, earning a giggle from his teammate, and a chuckle from the ramen waitress. Other than that, more training, though Kakashi-sensei keeps pairing Sakura-chan and myself together lately. Sounds like he's playing matchmaker and trying to get you two together. I am teased, causing the pinkette to deeply blush at the insinuation. However, the young blonde adopted an expression of thought on his face, narrowing his eyes slightly. I think the ramen waitress is on to something, Kit, Kurama commented. Though I doubt the bastard is trying to play matchmaker. He has an ulterior motive. I agree, but what? I am not sure, but I think your friend just became a pawn to be used and discarded once her usefulness has ended. Naruto couldn't help but frown at that. If he knew his renewed friendship with his pink-haired teammate would put her in danger, he would have continued to push her away. Cursing his forgiving nature, he tried to come up with a way to gently tell Sakura that it would be best to distance herself from him. Though he could come up with nothing that wouldn't reveal his secret, and he wasn't sure where she would stand if he told her that he had been kidnapped and was currently training to run away from Konoha to return home. You okay, Naruto? Sakura inquired as she snapped the blonde out of his musings. Yeah, he quickly replied. Why? You kind of zoned out there, kind of like you were talking to someone only you could hear, she offhandedly commented, not noticing the boy's eyes widen for a fraction of a second. Sorry about that, he replied sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. The two ate in a comfortable silence for the next few minutes, though to the pinkette's surprise, the blonde teen had stopped at a measly 2 bowls of ramen. Once he was finished, he laid his money out on the counter to pay for the meal and bid Sakura goodbye, telling her that he was going to go train a little. With a frown on her face, Sakura watched as her blonde teammate disappeared down the street. Not missing some of the glares sent the boy's way by the villagers he passed by, causing her to scowl slightly. You like him, don't you? A voice startled the young pinkette, snapping her out of her thoughts. Turning around, she saw a grinning Ayam. She fumbled, blushing horribly. Completely caught off guard by the young woman's bluntness. Aha, so you do like him? She exclaimed while pointing a playful accusing finger at the young pink-haired kunoichi. To hide her embarrassment, Sakura quickly shoveled the remaining ramen into her mouth and fished into her pocket to pay for her meal before the ramen waitress stopped her. Naruto-kun already paid for yours. She smiled, earning another faint blush from the pinkette at the blonde teen's gesture, and muttered a thanks to the ramen waitress. Just be sure to be there for him. Kemi knows that boy needs all the love he can get right now. Nodding her head, Sakura climbed down from her stool and departed the stand. She was half tempted to seek out her blonde teammate and perhaps join him for a training session, but she realized that she didn't know where Naruto trained when he was on his own. All she knew was that he did it away from prying eyes. To ensure Sasuke team couldn't copy my training with his pink eye, were the blonde's words. 2 months ago, the pinkette would have lashed out at the blonde for making such a comment about the great Uchiha, but when he had said it, she had simply giggled. Knowing that she wouldn't be able to find her blonde teammate, she had instead opted to head home and get to bed early. Not knowing what horrors would await her the next day, she was about halfway home when a voice called out to her from her right. Oi, forehead! A platinum blonde girl called out. What do you want, Enopig? The pinkette retorted. Is that any way to greet your best friend and rival? The blonde girl grinned as she approached Sakura. You haven't been my friend since we were 10. Sakura scowled, with a bit of disappointment in herself for allowing a single boy ruin their once close friendship. As much as she wanted to blame the girl across from her, she knew she was just as guilty. Anyways, Ino continued, ignoring the comment the pinkette made. I heard you've been spending a lot of time with Naruto Baka, even spent your first week back looking for him. What's up, you got the hots for him or something? Why do you care? Sakura inquired with a clipped tone, clenching her fists tightly as she became upset at the blonde girl insulting her blonde teammate. And Naruto is not an idiot. Just wanted to see if it was true. The blonde girl shrugged. And it seems it is, with how defensive you are over him. When Sakura didn't reply, Ino continued. So does this mean you're finally realizing that Sasuke-kun will never choose you over me? The blonde taunted. Is that why you're now chasing after that loser? Whatever. Sakura scoffed as she turned to walk away, only to be stopped once more by her former best friend. You really are chasing after Naruto now, aren't you? The blonde girl stated, more surprised than anything else. Okay, spill forehead, what happened? Sakura could only mentally groan, as she knew the Mind Walker would not let it drop until she got the information she was after. With a reluctant sigh, the pinkette motioned the blonde to follow her to one of the nearby training grounds, to reduce the chance of others listening in. Alright, spill the beans, Sakura, what happened to make you focus on Naruto Baka? Ino all but demanded, ignoring the pinkette's glare once they arrived to their destination. Fine, you know how a month ago we had that mission in Wave Country? Sakura inquired, earning a nod from the blonde. That's when it all changed. Naruto-kun said something that really shook me to my core. Ino could only cock an eyebrow at the kun suffix the pinkette had unknowingly attached to Naruto's name, but decided to remain silent for the time being, though storing this bit of information away to tease the pink-haired kunoichi later. Well, what did he say? The blonde mind walker asked, a bit impatiently. Did he confess his undying love to you or something? No, I wish it was something that simple. Sakura all but whispered, her expression turning solemn. When Kakashi-sensei and I found him after he mastered the tree walking exercise. He pulled one of his pranks. I yelled at him about how he could have died, and what he told me still haunts me. After a pregnant pause, much to the ire of the blonde, she continued. He said I wouldn't care if he did, and even stated that the village would celebrate his death. And the sad thing is, it's true about the villagers. Sakura finished, wiping a few tears that had formed in her eyes. How do you know if it's true? Ino asked, a little skeptical about the villagers' reaction if the blonde goofball had died. 2 reasons. Sakura sighed, looking down at the ground. When we returned, I followed Naruto-kun to try and talk to him. As I did, I heard the whispers of the villagers and even some of the shinobi, confirming what he said. Many wishing he would have died on our mission outside the village, others bragging about horrible things they have done to him in the past when he was younger. Ino could only look on in horror at this revelation. The other reason I know this. The pinkette bit back a sob. I henged as him for one day. All day, the glares, sneers, hateful words. Getting tossed out of stores, overcharged for expired food. And that wasn't the worst of it. They tried to kill me. Not just the villagers, but shinobi as well. They chased me with the intent of killing me. I don't believe it. The blonde stated in denial. Use your mind transfer jutsu on me then, and you will see it as it happened. Sakura challenged. Ino frowned a bit, before moving her fingers into the proper seals for her family's jutsu, rising up to the pinkette's challenge. Instantly, she found herself within her former friend's mind. Immediately she was thrust into the girl's memories of what happened in Wave. Naruto hanging upside down from a tree branch with his trademark grin on his face as he reacted to the frightened and shocked reaction he got from the two from his latest prank. Herself as Sakura yelling at him for being an idiot, and how he could have died if he fell. Then the words that felt like a punch to the gut, how she wouldn't care if he died. Kakashi reprimanding the blonde, only for Naruto to scoff and claim that no one would care if he died, and that the villagers would celebrate his death. Suddenly, the memories shifted to a bridge. 2 bodies had fallen due to the sheer number of adversaries before a short, fat man barked out orders for his men to kill the male shinobi and capture the women to be broken in and then sold off to various brothels. Fear freezing her very soul at the implication. Then she saw a red chakra wrap around Naruto as he let out an enraged roar before the blonde charged forth and began to massacre the thugs before reaching the pathetic fat man, who was now on his knees, begging to be spared. Ino could only gasp as she saw the red chakra wrap around the man and rip him apart. The slaughter finished, the red chakra seeped back into the blonde before he turned and collapsed on the bridge. Another shift, Ino found herself trailing the blonde boy through the village. Watching as the villagers she recognized as being cheerful and kind all glare at the blonde boy, whispering desires that the boy died, and some even bragging about how they had tortured the boy years ago. Their very words made her want to throw up in disgust. Another shift in memories. She now felt the glares and hateful words directed at her as she walked through the village. Attempting to enter a shop, only to be chased out by the shop owner. Stating something about demons not allowed in his store. She wanted to cry. Each store was the same experience, and those that did allow her and would charge her 3 times to normal price. Then, she felt a kunai graze her arm, bringing her attention to the mob that had formed behind her. Turning, she quickly ran away from them, dodging projectiles as much as she could. Then it all went black, and Ino found herself back in her own body. Tears streaming down her face at the memories she had just witnessed. She couldn't believe it, yet it was true. She knew the pink-haired girl couldn't fabricate such things. She had actually experienced these things firsthand. Though the Mind Walker had been completely unaware that inner Sakura had been the one directing her to certain memories. That last part you saw, Sakura stated, catching the blonde's attention. He lives through that every day. I can't believe it, Ino stammered, trying to shake the feeling of what she had just experienced. Rubbing her arm where the kunai had grazed her in the memory. But why would you henges him? Because I wanted to experience it for myself. The pinkette answered softly. My mother always told me that you never truly know someone until you walk a day in their shoes. Silence hung between them as Sasuke was forgotten from the blonde mind walker's mind. Her thoughts now revolving around her fellow blonde, and the daily trials he faced on a regular basis. However, one single thing stuck out to the blonde mind-walker. "You know, there is one thing I should point out to you, forehead." Ino mischievously grinned, making Sakura a little bit nervous. "This entire time, you've been referring to Naruto as Naruto-kun." At this, the pinkette stiffened as a heavy blush spread across her face. "Naruto." The blonde Jinchuriki groaned as he did his stretches, having arrived at his desired training ground that had become a home away from home. Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. He had chosen this particular training ground for his private training due to the fact that many shinobi, even of Jonin rank, avoided this place due to the dangers that the forest itself held. Only one was crazy enough to frequent here, aside from himself. Not wasting any more time, Naruto summoned around 100 clones and divided them into small groups. Instructing one group to practice tree walking, another to set to work on water walking, another group to practice Fuinjutsu, and the last group he split in half. Having one half practice throwing kunai, and the other half throwing shuriken. With his clones setting off on their assigned tasks, the original removed his monstrosity orange jumpsuit, leaving him in only a pair of dark blue shorts and a black t-shirt. He really hated that jumpsuit and cursed the old bastard for forcing him to wear it. Of course he knew why the bastard instilled that false memory of orange being his favorite color. It made him stand out more, easier to hunt down for the villagers' fox hunts. Making a mental note to trash any remnants of his orange clothing as soon as he got back home where he belonged, and replace them with his favorite colors, black and red. Moving over to one of the training posts, he began to execute perfect strikes into the post, barely registering the impact as his knuckles and shins smashed into the hardwood. The indentations on the post where his strikes connected made it very clear he had been doing this since his return from Wave. Though, as they often did, memories began to float to the front of his mind. Of his life in Barigakure. All his girls, his Haim smiling at him, his mother hugging him. The villagers actually treating him with kindness and respect. Then Kakashi, the bastard, luring him away to an isolated training field. A false promise of teaching him one of his father's famous jutsus. The night everything came undone and destroyed. So caught up in his memories that Naruto didn't notice the blood coming from his shin as he began to kick the post harder, until in one last powerful strike, he broke the training post in half, snapping him out of his thoughts. "Fuck." The blonde cursed as a wave of pain washed over him as he came crashing back to reality. "Damn!" Gaki, a voice called out from behind him, prompting him to turn to see the snake mistress making her way over to him. "Hey Anko-chan." Naruto smiled, as he turned to greet the approaching snake mistress. "So what's got you so upset that you decided to chop down the training post with just your legs?" Anko inquired in a teasing tone, though an underlying hint of concern was evident. "Just bad memories," he replied honestly with a sigh. "Kami, I wish I could tell her the truth." "Then tell her, Kit," Kurama stated. "I can sense she truly cares for you, hell, she may even love you. She's not that much older than you." This of course earned a slight blush from the blonde as he struggled to mentally shake himself out of his inner monologue. "Still being haunted by what happened on your last mission outside the village, Gaki?" the snake mistress asked, taking a seat on a fallen log. Frowning slightly, Naruto came to his decision. "No, something else." He sighed as he walked over to the same log, and sat down just a small bit away from her. "Anko-chan, what I am about to tell you is a secret that I trust you with." Hearing the seriousness in the boy's tone, Anko turned her full attention to him, turning herself so that she was now straddling the log, facing directly at the young blonde. Concern etched in her face. "I don't belong here," he stated with a sigh, causing her to narrow her eyes slightly at his words. "This village, it's not my home." "What do you mean, Gaki?" she asked. "I know the villagers are and will rot in hell for the shit they have pulled." "It's not that, Anko-chan," Naruto interrupted her, causing her to scowl slightly. "The truth is, 7 years ago, I was kidnapped from my home in Barigakure, under the orders of the current Hokage." At this revelation, Anko's eyes widened to comical proportions. Silently, she moved closer and brought the blonde teen into a hug, inadvertently smashing his head into her breasts, causing him to blush fiercely at the closeness. Though she believed him, she knew all too well that the village was not the beacon of purity that it claimed to be. "You're training to leave, aren't you, Naruto-kun?" she asked, her voice soft in a very un-Anko-like tone. "Yes," he replied honestly, gently pulling away from her to look her in the eyes, though blushed as he realized just how beautiful she looked. "I want to go home. Away from the hate and the pain." "The Chunin exams," she whispered. "What?" Starting this week is the Chunin exams. Anko continued. That will be your chance. Lots of people from foreign countries will be coming in and out of the village. That's your best chance to escape. Anko-chan? With all the movement, it should give you a head start before they send anyone after you. She continued, tears forming in her eyes as she sniffled slightly. Come with me, Anko-chan, he offered, earning a surprised look from the snake mistress, gently taking her hand into his own. Now it was her turn to look at the blonde in confusion, realizing what he was asking. I know you've gone through the same shit as me, he pressed, moving slightly closer to bring her into a comforting hug. I know the villagers also treat you like shit. You would be welcomed in Baragakir. But if I leave, they won't remove the seal the snake bastard put on me. She tried to protest, though it was weak. Anko-chan, he sighed. I don't think these bastards ever plan on actually removing it from you. It's just a false promise to string you along. Just like Kakashi Baka does with me with new jutsus. Hearing this, Anko couldn't prevent the tears from falling from her eyes. She had her doubts the old man would ever come through with his promise of freeing her from her past, but she knew the blonde teen was right. He was only stringing her along. Sobs racking her body as she silently admitted the truth to herself. But don't worry, Hebeheim. He smiled as he brought her face up to look at him, causing her to blush at his nickname for her. I promise you that we will get it off you and free you from that bastard. Hearing this, the snake mistress did the first thing that came to mind. She launched forward and captured the blonde's lips with her own, catching him by surprise, though he returned her kiss as he was forced to lay back on the log with the seductive snake mistress on top of him. Good going, Kit, you got another one? Kurama laughed inside the boy's mind. Now you just need 4 more to fill all the seats of your family council. One step at a time, Arrow Fox. Naruto mentally shot back at his tenant, an older brother figure. We don't even know if she will. Oh wow, she's using her tongue. At this, the giant fox barked with laughter as the snake mistress assaulted his host's mouth with her own tongue. Things were going to get interesting, and soon. Baragakir, 1 day earlier. Kushina gazed out of the window of her office, overlooking a majority of the village of Baragakir. It had been just over a month since the girls had returned from Wave Country, and had begun their training for the upcoming Chunin exams that were to be hosted by Konoha. The woman had long since sent the proper paperwork to get her team into the exams, under the guise of strengthening relationships between the 2 villages. Fortunately, the required paperwork went through the Fire Daimyo's court, and not the local village's council. Knowing that Konoha was behind the kidnapping of her son, she was positive if Hiruzen had to approve the papers, he would isolate Naruto away from the village just to keep him out of sight while they were there. The mere thought that the old bastard was behind her son's kidnapping made her blood boil. When she had learned the news, she was tempted to follow Rory and Morgiana's idea and storm the village, but years of being a village leader herself had done much to temper her recklessness from her youth. Her main priority now was to simply extract her son. She would deal with the war once he was safe. Mission success, Barakage-sama. A deep voice spoke from behind her. Turning, she saw a rather tall and lean man with a gymnast's body. His face obscured by a metallic mask that gave off the impression of being a skull. Reaching up, the man before her removed his mask and lowered his hood, exposing a rugged face with a scruffy beard and shaggy long hair. What did you find, Corvo? She inquired as she took her seat behind her desk, waiting for her top spy master and assassin to report on his recent mission. As you requested, I investigated the new village that had popped up in Rice Country. The man began. I learned that it is being led by the missing Nin, Orochimaru. Furthermore, upon investigating inside the village walls, I came across something interesting. And what's that? He plans to invade Konoha during the upcoming Chunin exams, during the finals. Corvo replied as he produced a few scrolls. I've copied down his plans. Looks like he has talked Suna into joining him, due to the financial stress the village has been under due to their own Wind Daimyo forwarding missions to Konoha instead. Taking the scrolls, Kushina began to read over them, narrowing her eyes slightly before a ghost of a smile visited her lips. I also heard that young Naruto-sama has been found. The man ventured, garnering the attention of the red-haired woman once more. You overheard the girls, didn't you? She smiled, earning a nod in acknowledgement from her spy master. Just over a month ago we felt Kurama's chakra signature spike. I sent the girls to investigate the source, a small village in Wave Country. Upon arriving there, they discovered that Naruto-kun had been there with a team of genin from Konoha. Corvo narrowed his eyes at this, clearly upset that a close ally would betray them in such a way. The mark on his left hand pulsating with power. He knew he should have searched Konoha first, despite the Hokage's reassurances that they were doing what they could to help find the missing boy. Say the word, and I will have him home before nightfall, he stated. As much as I would love that, I have something else in mind. Kushin aside. The girls will be entering the Chunin exams as genins. Their mission is to locate Naruto-kun and assess the situation, and extract him. Don't know if I should feel sorry for anyone who gets in their way, he commented with a small chuckle. However, with the information you have provided about this new Sound Village, and Orochimaru's plans to invade has given us a new opportunity. She continued. When the invasion begins, I have a special mission for you. This is what I want you to do. At this, Corvo paid rapt attention to his new mission he was being given, a grin twitching at his lips. Naruto was not in the best of moods currently. Just hours ago, the old bastard had made a surprise visit to his apartment, forcing the young blonde to dispel his blood clone. As the old man had made a habit of walking around the young teen's apartment, in the guise of having a grandfatherly talk with the boy. Though Naruto had caught on what the bastard was really doing, making a mental list of anything deemed too nice for the weapon to own. It was no coincidence that shortly after one of the surprise visits from the old man, that his apartment would get broken into and vandalized. Oftentimes with some of his more treasured items being stolen or destroyed. He had originally had his suspicions before the Wave mission, though the loyalty seal that had been placed on him had prevented him from accusing the elderly man of doing such a thing. Fortunately, he begun to stash what few precious items he had in a secure spot away from his apartment, prior to his mission in Wave. Not that it was much. Only a few gifts that had been given to him by his few precious people. Looking back, he was extremely grateful that he never removed his most precious of items, his necklace. Thanks to seals that had been placed there by his mother, making it so that even if the necklace were to somehow be removed, he would return right back to him within seconds. No doubt, that was one item the old bastard desperately wanted to remove from the boy's possession. He could feel it every time Hiruzen glanced at the necklace. Simply because the necklace gave the boy a sense of individuality. Unfortunately, the elder man had taken much longer than usual with his visit. No doubt double-checking the blonde seals discreetly as he made small talk. By the time the Hokage had left the apartment, Naruto was already running behind, forcing him to rush to meet with his team for the day. As such, he was unable to recreate his blood clone before he ran out the door, since creating such a clone required at least half an hour to complete. Meaning that until he could safely recreate a blood clone, he was vulnerable to the old bastard's spying. Of course, he knew he would still be arriving early to the training ground, due to Kakashi's constant habit of being late, which would have given him time to complete the clone, but it would also attract unwanted attention on himself if he didn't continue on as normal, thus putting him in between a rock and a hard place. Finally reaching his team's training ground, Naruto let out a tired yawn and settled himself against one of the training posts. He figured he would have at least another half hour before Sakura showed up, and then another 15 minutes for Sasuke to arrive. Then finally, another 2.5 hours before the bastard of a sensei and his kidnapper would grace them with his appearance. As he waited for the rest of his team to arrive, Naruto began to think back about his talk with Anko yesterday. After the impromptu make-out session that the snake mistress had initiated, not that he minded, he had told her everything there was about him. Feeling that if she was going to leave the village with him, she should know everything. From his earlier years in Barigakure, his tenant, and of course, his engagement to the 5 girls. He had expected her to be upset at him for not telling her before she kissed him, but to his surprise, she merely teased him about having his own little harem. Which had caused him to scowl slightly. He really didn't like the word harem, as it implied that those involved with him had no free will, and were merely there for his own pleasure. Instead, he informed the snake mistress that he preferred to see it as his own growing family. Something the snake mistress had found endearing. Afterwards, they had begun discussing their plans to leave the village. Anko had informed him that the best time would be during the second phase of the Chunin exams, otherwise known as the finals, as it was customary for there to be some preliminary rounds to further weed out the participants, as well as a month-long break between the preliminaries and the finals. Anko had explained that this was to allow the finalists to train themselves further to give them an edge of their opponent, and second, the month-long break was there to allow foreigner dignitaries to arrive to witness the final matches. With all the people coming and going, it would be the best time for the two of them to sneak out of the village and get a good head start towards Barigakure. Unknown to both of them, a rescue mission was in progress to get him out of the village. Morning, Naruto-kun. A feminine voice broke the blonde out of his musings. Morning, Sakura-chan. The blonde greeted, though was surprised at her use of the kun suffix with his name. Sakura had also seemed to notice this and blushed slightly. A little bit embarrassed. Not to mention, what Ino had pointed out the previous day had only brought forth what she did not want to admit, at least not yet. That she now had a crush on the blonde. Which was really awkward for her, since his crush on her died in wave, only for her to develop one for him. I give it 15 more minutes before Sasuke team arrives, Naruto noted as he stood up and stretched, allowing a series of pops and cracks to be heard. Then another 2.5 hours before Kakashi-sensei to show up. Sure enough, nearly 15 minutes alter, Sasuke arrived on the training field. Being his usual brooding self. Opting to sit away from his other two teammates. Though he eyed the two suspiciously, trying to figure out what the two seemed different. The last Uchiha couldn't put his finger on it, but over the last month both Sakura and Naruto had subtly changed. Sakura now seemed to have more energy, and actually begun to take her career as a kunoichi seriously. Not even pestering him for a single date in an entire month. If anything, aside from a standard greeting, she ignored him. Making Sasuke feel a bit conflicted. On one hand, he was relieved that she had begun to take her training more seriously. On the other, his days felt a little empty without her constant request for a date. Still, such emotions would only distract him from his goal to avenge his clan. As for Naruto, the Uchiha didn't know, but he felt as if his blonde teammate was hiding something. Not just from him, but from everyone in the village. The boy's posture gave the raven-haired boy the distinct feeling that the blonde was way more aware of his surroundings than he let on. Not to mention, there were times it would appear the blonde would zone out, as if he was listening to something or something else. Then there was the fact that both Sakura and the blonde were becoming close to one another, and constantly hanging out or training together in their spare time. Still, as long as they didn't get in his way or slow him down, he didn't care what they did. As the three genin settled into their own activities with Naruto and Sakura quietly conversing with one another and Sasuke brooding by himself, time slowly ticked by. Eventually, after what seemed like an eternity had passed, the 2.5-hour mark came, and went with no sign of their sensei. Well, looks like your timing is off. Sakura teased, though internally she was becoming frustrated that their sensei had yet to appear as it was starting to near the 4-hour mark, and still no sign of the lazy jonin. Something probably came up, you know how he is. The blonde shrugged as he glanced in the direction of the Hokage's tower. Probably the beginning of the Chunin exams that Enko-chan told us about. She did say that it was starting this week, after she finished probing your tonsils. Kurama voiced his opinion with a laugh, causing his host to blush at the memory. Aerofox. Hokage's tower. I, Kurina Yuhi, nominate my team of Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburain for the Chunin exams. A red-eyed beauty stated with confidence. I, Konoha's sublime green beast of prey, Mato Gai, nominate my youthful team of Tenten Higurashi, Niji Hyuga, and my most youthful student, Rock Lee, for the Chunin exams. A large, well-built man in a green jumpsuit proudly exclaimed, earning a series of sweat drops from his peers. I, Asuma Sarutobi, nominate my team of Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, and Choji Akimichi for the Chunin exams. The bearded man calmly stated, taking a drag from the cigarette that was in his mouth. Nodding at the Jonin sensei's nomination of their respected teams in front of him, Hiruzen turned his attention to the last remaining sensei, who of course had his nose stuck in his favorite orange book. And what about your team, Kakashi? Looking up from his book in a lazy manner, the masked Jonin let out a small sigh. I nominate my team for the Chunin exams, he replied lazily as he turned his attention back to his book, without a care in the world. Foregoing the usual standard introduction of the team members that the other senseis had done before him. Very well, the Hokage stated as he rose from his desk, a small pile of papers in his hands that he began to hand out to the Jonin senseis before him. Give these to your teams, have them fill them out and turn them in before the end of the day. With a vocal affirmation, the three other senseis departed the office, leaving behind Kakashi, who finally put his book away. Are you sure your team is ready? Hiruzen eyed the masked Jonin skeptically. Should the boy die, we will lose our weapon. All he has to do is survive the first half of the exam, Kakashi stated calmly. Which, with the help of his team, he will. See to it that he does, the elder man stated in a cold tone. I will not have our weapon lost before we can use it. Also, the silver-haired man begun. The Forest of Death portion of the test would be the perfect time for the Haruno girl to have an accident. Do you feel that the two of them have bonded enough? While they are not intimate, she never leaves his side, Kakashi pointed out. A and B, you could handle it easily enough. No. The elder man shot down the idea. We can't risk her surviving or worse, the weapon witnessing on of our own killing her. It would be best if one of the other genin teams were to remove her. At this, the old man had an idea. I'll talk to Danzo, and see if he can spare a team of disposable root members, the Hokage stated. They kill the girl, and the weapon kills again. For now, go and give your team their papers. As you wish, Hokage-sama. Kakashi bowed before leaving the elder man to his thoughts. Hopefully this will be the final push to break the boy's mind. Training Ground 7. Frustrated. That would be the best way to describe the trio that made up Team 7. They had been waiting for almost 5 hours now, and still, there was no sign of their sensei. At this point, for the first time since the team's creation, all three agreed on one thing. Kakashi Hatake would be late to his own funeral. Though if it were up to Naruto, the bastard wouldn't even be given a proper burial. Yo! A plume of smoke erupted from the top of the training pole that Sasuke had decided to lean against. Sorry I'm late. A black cat crossed my path, so I had to take the long way around. But then I was forced into a hand-walk race with a one-armed yeti. All three of the genins couldn't help but to sweat drop at the masked man's excuse this time. It was by far the most outlandish one to date. So what are we doing today, Kakashi-sensei? The blonde asked with genuine interest. Any new missions? Actually no. The man replied with a nice smile. I nominated you three for the Chunin exams. Jumping down off the post, he handed each of his students the slip of paper he had been given to allow them to enter the exams. Fill these out and have them turned in immediately. Without giving any real instruction, he disappeared in another poof of smoke, leaving behind three bewildered genins. Well, I don't know about you two, but I am definitely entering, Naruto stated with a fox-like grin, earning a small smirk from the Uchiha. See you there, dope, Sasuke stated with a smirk as he shoved the paper into his pocket and left the training field. Are you sure about this, Naruto? Sakura inquired, clearly worried. Of course I am, Sakura-chan, he exclaimed, giving her a reassuring smile. We're strong enough to handle this. I can't let some tests scare me if I am going to be Hokage someday. Though despite saying this, Naruto was worried on the inside. Knowing that the masked bastard was behind his kidnapping, he wasn't expecting him to actually nominate them for the exams. Hell, he was fully expected the pervert to come up with some bullshit excuse as to why they wouldn't be able to participate in the exams. Still, if he backed out now, it would only bring scrutiny down upon him and jeopardize his chance to escape the village. Well, I am going to go fill my slip out and turn it in, Naruto stated to the pinkette. Just know, Sakura-chan, that if you don't think you are ready for it, I will not think any less of you. Receiving a nod from the pink-haired girl, the blonde set off to submit himself into the exams. No, I cannot let Naruto-kun down, Sakura thought to herself. We are ready for this. Let's show them, cha. Konoha Gates, 2 hours later. As late afternoon hung over the village, 6 figures made their way towards the massive gates. A flurry of emotions swirling between all of them. A mixture of excitement, anxiety, and a small trace of fear. At the head of the group was Kairi. The young redhead was eager to see her fiancé for the first time in 7 years, despite Aqua reminding her to keep her expectations tempered, and to be emotionally prepared for anything. So what's the plan, Nagato-sensei? Xian inquired, shifting the weight of the massive blade she now carried on her back. Should we ask around and look for Naruto-kun right away, or? No, do not ask about him, answered the red-haired man that was acting as their Jonin sensei for the exams. We know that Hatake kidnapped him, no doubt under the Hokage's orders. If you were to ask around for him, it would alert them to our true purpose. Xian nodded in response, though like her red-headed friend, she was also anxious to see him again. It was the feeling of being so close, yet so far away at the same time. I don't know about you guys, but I am starving. Morgiana pipped in as a small grumbling noise could be heard from her stomach, causing her to blush in embarrassment, and eliciting a round of giggles from the others. When we arrive in Konoha, you all get our hotel rooms. Aqua, the true leader of the mission, stated. I will stop at the ramen stand that Kushina-sama had recommended we try before we left. What if we see Naruto-kun? Rory asked, prompting the blue-haired girl in front of them to stop abruptly and turn towards the group that also stopped. If you see him, approach him with caution, the young blue-haired woman stated calmly. We don't know how he will react, nor do we know how closely he is being watched over. If you can talk with him, be subtle and assess the situation. Understood, Aqua-chan, the halberd-wielding beauty replied. Also, as tempting as it is, do not attack any of the Konoha shinobi unless attacked first. The blue-haired woman continued. Keep in mind, there may be innocents. Both Morgiana and Rory adopted a scowl on their faces. The two of them really wanted to dish out some personal justice to the village, but their future sister-wife had a point. Short of those involved blatantly advertising it, there would be no way to tell who was innocent and who was not in the kidnapping of their beloved. Also mind your emotions for anyone who may speak out against young Naruto, Nagato pointed out. As you know, only Kumogakure and Barigakure are the only two hidden villages that treat their Jinchuriki with respect. Do you think his status as a Jinchuriki was leaked to the public? Kairi asked in a worried tone. I wouldn't put it past the old man. The red-haired male sighed. It's common practice to abuse the Jinchuriki both mentally and physically in most villages to mentally condition them. Though from what Yu-Give had reported from Wave, it seems he hasn't been broken yet. Which is good. Let's hurry then, and bring our beloved home, Xian stated, earning nods of agreement. Another 20 minutes saw that at the gates of the village. Quickly signing in with the two Chunin that were on gate duty, the Barigakure group entered the village of Konoha. Sticking to the plan, Aqua split off from the group to acquire some ramen, while the other group made their way towards the hotel to reserve the rooms for the duration of the exams. Each of their eyes sharp, looking for any trace of their lost loved one. While Aqua went off to get the food, the rest of the Barigakure group continued on towards the Sleepy Willow Inn, an extravagant premier hotel within Konoha. Earning some curious looks from the various villagers, and some of the shinobi, as Barigakure shinobi were rarely seen within Konoha. As they approached the hotel, the group was approached by 3 genins from Konoha. One with a dark pair of sunglasses hiding his eyes, while a large coat covered the lower half of his face. Beside him was a shy-looking girl with pearly white eyes and lavender-colored hair. The last was a feral-looking boy with a white puppy on his head, 2 red upside-down triangles adorning his face. Damn, you look good, the feral boy stated as his team approached the group, all while eyeing Morgiana up and down, causing her to narrow her eyes slightly. Kiba-san, please do not harass our guests, the boy in the large coat said in a monotone voice, before turning his attention towards the group as a whole. If I am to guess, you are here for the Chunin exams? That is correct, Xian replied, though her tone held a cold edge to it. Forgive me, my name is Shino Abirame. The boy now identified as Shino introduced himself before gesturing to his 2 teammates. And this is Hinata Hyuga, and Kiba Inuzuka. Pleased to meet you. Kairi gave a small bow. My name is Kairi, and these are Xian, Rory, Morgiana, and our sensei, Nagato. As was with the introduction of the only male in the group, did the members of Team 8 notice the taller, red-haired man, his piercing blue eyes focusing in on the 3 of them, making it feel as if he were gazing into their very soul. Shaking off his shock, Kiba turned his attention back towards the pink-haired girl. So, Morgiana-chan, he grinned. How would you like to go on a date with a true alpha? At this, the girl in question leveled a cold glare at the boy. Not interested, she merely replied with a scoff. Ah, come on, don't be like that, the boy persisted, much to the annoyance of the rest of the girls, and the embarrassment of his own team. I'm sure once you see just how much of an alpha I am, you'll fall for me. Not likely, mutt, Morgiana growled out, as the boy was getting on her nerves. And I will have you know, I am already engaged to someone. Really, who is it? Kiba all but demanded, a growl in his voice that someone dare lay claim on what he perceived as his. I'll beat him down, and then make you submit to me. At this, all of the girls cast a dark glare at the boy. The fact that he had the audacity to threaten their beloved had angered them. Even more so was the fact that the boy showed he cared nothing for loyalty and integrity and no doubt viewed women as only trophies. So is this how Konoha shinobi view loyalty and commitment? Xian inquired, turning towards the feral boy, a cold look in her golden eyes. If so, perhaps our village should reevaluate our alliance. Kiba-kun, you're making our village look bad, spoke the shy Hyuga girl in a soft voice. Please forgive our teammate, we believe his sister dropped him on his head when he was an infant, Shino stated in his monotone voice, though earned a few curious looks from his teammates that the normally all-serious Albarama had cracked a joke at his teammate's expense. We hope you enjoy your stay in our village. Hinata bowed. Yeah, I'll be seeing you later, Kiba said, not taking his eyes off Morgiana. I swear, that mud better pray to Kami we don't get matched up against each other, Morgiana growled, clenching her fist tightly. Because so help me if we do, he is not walking away whole. I have to say, Xian-san, you handled that rather well, Nagato commented, calling into question their stance on loyalty and integrity. He then turned towards the pink-haired Kunoichi. And I am proud of you as well, Morgiana-san. You restrained yourself well when faced with the boy's arrogance. Thank you, Nagato-sensei. The two girls smiled. Now let us be off. Naruto. It had been non-stop all afternoon for the young blonde. As decided, he had immediately filled out his sheet and entered himself into the Chunin exams, ignoring the glare the receptionist gave him when he turned in his paper. Then he had stopped off to visit Anko, whom was none too pleased that he had entered the exams. It had taken some time to calm her down, as well as a few kisses, but in the end, she relented. It would seem out of character for him to not attempt to pass the exams. Having calmed the snake mistress, Naruto now found himself seated at his favorite place, with a hot bowl of ramen in front of him. Probably the only thing in the village he would miss when him and Anko finally escaped the cesspool, but then again, no matter how good Ichiraku's was, it still didn't compare to his mother's home cooking. However, he froze mid-bite as he sensed someone. Cautiously, he turned his head just slightly to see out of the corner of his eye the blue-haired beauty whom was frozen in place behind him. She's here. If she's here, then the others are probably with her. What do I do? I can't talk openly with her, he mentally exclaimed, cursing himself for not taking the time to recreate his blood clone, knowing that a squad of ANBU was observing him now, though he didn't recognize the chakra signatures. Calm down, Kit, and think, Kurama stated as Beast pondered the situation. What about that game you and the girls played during your preliminary school days, when you would send each other secret messages? Game secret messages? Naruto's eyes suddenly widened in realization. That's it. I suggest a late-night meeting in Training Ground 44, since no one ever goes there except for Anko. Right. Doing what he could to calm himself, Naruto took another bite from his ramen and waited for his blue-haired goddess to approach the stand. It was clear that she recognized him. He didn't have to wait long, as the young woman entered the stand and took a seat next to him. Welcome to Ichiraku's, what can I get you? I asked the new arrival with her usual cheer. 6 large miso ramen to go, please. Aqua politely ordered, prompting the young waitress to disappear back into the kitchen, leaving the two alone. First time here? Naruto asked, striking up a conversation with the blue-haired beauty, all the while tapping his finger on the counter with his left hand. Aqua narrowed her eyes slightly in thought as he listened to the rhythm of the taps, racking her memory before she realized what he was doing. It was obvious her blonde beloved was under scrutiny from the village, so he was giving her a message in code. Training Ground 44, midnight. Yes, my team and I are here for the Chunin exams, Aqua answered, while also tapping her finger in another series of taps. Understood. I'm in the exams too. Naruto smiled, causing her heart to melt, to finally be able to see his radiant smile after so many years of being without it. Here you go, that'll be 6,000 ryo. Informed the blue-haired young woman. Nodding, Aqua dug into her pouch only to be stopped by Naruto, subtly giving her a wink, causing the normally stoic woman to blush lightly. Here, let me take care of that for you, he stated as he brought out his own wallet and paid for her food. Thank you, Naruto Uzumaki. Thank you again, Naruto-kun-san. She almost slipped up. I hope to see you in the exams. Nodding, Naruto turned back to his meal as Aqua departed the ramen stand with an invigorated pace to return to the hotel and tell the others the good news. Oh sure, now the fuckers leave. Naruto mentally grumbled as he felt the chakra signatures of the ANB that had been watching him fade away. Aqua. The young brunette wasted no time in returning to the hotel that the other girls were residing. Locking on to their chakra signatures, she quickly used her frost shunshin and appeared inside the room the Give girls would be sharing, whereas Nagato had taken a room for himself. Calming herself, she set the food on the table and took a deep breath to try and calm her emotions, which failed as she let out an excited squeal that attracted everyone's attention. Aqua-chan, are you alright? Kairi inquired as she entered the kitchen area with the others, each sporting a confused and curious look, as the blue-haired teen hardly ever let her emotions get the best of her. Well, she smiled. I ran into Naruto-kun and the ramen stand. As soon as his name left her mouth, the others were immediately upon her, asking what he looked like, if he remembered them, and above all, if he was all right. Yes, he remembers us, but he is being monitored, she sadly explained. But he will be in the exams. So, we don't get to see him until tomorrow afternoon then? Xian asked, sadness in her voice. No, Aqua answered with a smile. We are to meet with him tonight at midnight in Training Ground 44. Hearing this, all of the girls seemed to brighten up, the thought of finally being able to reunite with their beloved greatly lifting their spirits. giving them hope that everything was going to be alright. Be sure to inform Nagato-sensei, Aqua reminded them, mostly so the elder Uzumaki man didn't need to worry about them. 8 hours later. After the encounter with Aqua at the ramen stand, Naruto had wasted no time in returning to his apartment and recreating his blood clone. That old bastard be damned, he was not going to miss the chance to reconnect with his girls. Now, he found himself pacing back and forth in the middle of the Forest of Death, otherwise known as Training Ground 44. This, of course, was getting on the Kyuubi's nerves, but he kept quiet. Kurama understood how his host felt, and pitied him. Suddenly, he froze as he felt 5 very familiar and very warm chakra signatures a short distance behind him. Slowly turning, he saw his girls. A look of worry and relief etched in all of their faces. Seeing them again, tears formed in his eyes, unable to hold back his emotions that were surging within him. Facing them, he made one step forward before he was tackled to the ground by a crying redhead. Instinctively, he wrapped his arms around the crying form of Kairi and embraced her with a firm hug. Almost as if he was afraid she would disappear if he let go. "It's really you!" Kairi cried into his chest, before leaning up and giving him a full kiss on the mouth. One he gladly returned. By now the others had gathered around their blonde beloved, each embracing them in their own hugs and kisses after Kairi and reluctantly relinquished him from her grip. "What happened, Naruto-kun?" Rory asked, tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't you try and contact us?" Letting out a sigh, the young blonde sat down on a fallen log, prompting the girls to do the same. "Guess I'd better start from the beginning," he stated. All 5 of the girls silently seethed in anger and disgust as their blonde lover had finished his tale of what had exactly happened on his end. How he had 2 seals placed upon him that blocked his memories and made him loyal to only the Hokage, and by extension Konoha. Though each silently thankful that Kurama's chakra had finally managed to break the seals that had kept their love subdued. What even infuriated them further was how the old bastard had allowed the village to treat Naruto. Everything from the beatings to being sabotaged in his schooling. Even further, when the girls learned that Hiruzen had lied to Naruto about his parents, playing them off as some poor civilians that died during the Kyuubi attack. Which begged the question, why did Hiruzen allow Naruto to keep his name? From what both Kurama and Naruto could determine, it was simply because his Uzumaki blood would not allow him to forget his proud heritage. While the memory seal worked to make him forget his mother and those close to him, he always remembered his name. The young blonde had recalled when Hiruzen had attempted to have him be named Menma, only for Naruto to correct him every time that his name was Naruto, not Menma. After a few days, the elder Hokage had given up on changing the Jinchuriki's name, and came up with a bullshit cover story that he had given the orphan boy the name of Kushina, missing son, in honor of the lost boy. If only just to ward off any suspicions from Kushina's close friends that still resided within the village. The civilian families ate it up, as did most of the shinobi clan heads, with only some of the Inuzuka clan showing any signs of suspicion. If the feral woman did suspect anything, she kept it to herself. And that's pretty much it. Naruto finished with a sigh. "Wait, did that old bastard really try to change your name to Menma?" Rory inquired with a sneer. "Yeah." The blonde teenage boy sighed. "Son of a bitch wanted to completely erase my identity. There was also several times he tried to take my necklace from me, though thanks to the seals Ka-chan put on it, it never worked." Speaking of which. Naruto frowned in confusion. "Why are you girls here? Not that I am complaining." This of course earned a round of giggles from the girls. "Well, after we felt Kurama-sama's chakra signature, Kushina-sama speculated that it came from Wave Country and sent us to investigate it." Aqua began with a soft smile, as it was the day that hope reignited in all of them. "Explains why Xianchan has Zabuza's old sword," Kurama commented, earning a mental nod from the blonde. "We missed you by a week," Kairi commented sadly. "Sorry." Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. "But it's okay now." The red-haired girl smiled and latched onto the blonde. "After we learned you were here, Kushina-sama sent us here to bring you back home. We can leave tomorrow." At this, all of the other girls agreed. However, it didn't go unnoticed that Naruto didn't show the same excitement. Slowly, the blonde shook his head with a sigh, though before the girls could ask him why, he turned his head and looked at a nearby tree. "You can come out now, Anko-chan," he called out, much to the confusion of the girls. After a few seconds of silence, the lithe form of Konoha's snake mistress came into view as she stepped out from behind the tree that Naruto had been looking at. A mixture of surprise, concern, and a bit of sadness evident on her face as she slowly approached the group. While she knew of the girls and Naruto's connection to them, she was still surprised to see all 5 of them here within the village. especially hearing that they were here specifically to find him and bring him back home. This was also why the normally confident snake mistress was feeling concerned. Now that the girls from Barukagyo were here, more specifically, they were here for him. Not the Chunin exams, but for Naruto himself. Despite how ludicrous it seemed, Anko felt a sense of fear fester to life within her that now that Naruto had a means to escape, he would abandon her. However, her musings were cut short when she felt a pair of arms embrace her. I know what you're thinking, Hibiheim. The blonde smiled at her. I will not abandon you. We stick to the plan. Naruto-kun, who is she? Kairi asked, with the others each looking to their blonde beloved. Forgive me. Naruto stated with a small bow in apology for the lack of introductions. Ladies, this is Anko Midarashi. She will be coming with us back to Barrigakure. Anko, these are my fiancés I told you about. Hey there. Anko greeted cheerfully. Though Naruto could see that it was a front that she was putting on. He knew she was scared. Scared that he would leave her, and scared that the girls would not accept her. Nice to meet you, I'm Kairi. Kairi smiled, embracing the snake mistress in a hug, much to Anko's shock. I am Aqua. The blue-haired young woman introduced herself with a smile. And on behalf of all of us, I would like to thank you for looking after Naruto-kun. It was nothing. Anko tried to wave it off as no big deal. I didn't do much actually. You did more than you can imagine, just for being there for him when we couldn't. Xian stated, before introducing herself. Name's Xian, by the way. Xian-chan is right, Anko-chan. Rory commented with her own smile. I'm Rory, also known as the Reaper. Wait, you're Rory the Reaper? Anko exclaimed in shock that someone so young had earned such a reputation throughout the elemental nations. Especially since she began to earn her alias when she was only 7. Yup. The ruby-eyed, black-haired girl giggled, scratching the back of her head sheepishly. We all took Naruto-kun's disappearance hard. Rory-chan just decided to use every bandit camp she saw to take out her frustration for an entire week. Morgiana explained just how her future sister-wife got her title. By the way, I am Morgiana. Well ladies, looks like we got a new future sister-wife. Aqua grinned, teasingly bopping Naruto on the head lightly, which prompted him to nervously chuckle while scratching the back of his head. Anko, however, was in tears. Throughout her years living in Konoha, she would never have dreamed of being so easily accepted by the others. Not to say she didn't have any friends within the village, but their number was small. While there was no end to the people who would fake sympathy and concern all for a chance to get into her pants. Of course, once they were denied, they always showed their true colors. Seeing this, the 5 girls brought the snake mistress in for a comforting hug, each whispering their own comforting words to the young woman. So, what's this about a plan? Aqua inquired, once Anko had calmed down. Well, Anko-chan and I were already planning on leaving the village during the finales. Naruto began to explain. As it is customary for there to be a month break in between the second phase of the exam and the finals, and with all the daimyos, kages, and other foreign visitors, it would be easier to sneak out and be long gone before anyone noticed we were missing. Especially since I am planning on leaving a blood clone behind with Kurama's chakra to throw them off the scent for a while. During the finals? Xian asked, earning a nod from the snake mistress and the blonde. That's when Orochimaru is supposed to be invading Konoha, Rory commented. At the mention of Orochimaru, Anko immediately snapped her attention to the black-haired girl. Did you say Orochimaru? Yes, he plans to invade Konoha during the final matches, Morgiana answered. Yeah, the snake bastard plans on using the Suna shinobi as cannon fodder while he holds his own shinobi back, Rory commented with a sneer. Not to mention, he will be using Suna's Jinchuriki to spearhead the attack. Naruto could see the anger rising up within the snake mistress at the mention of her former sensei's name, and that he was going to be within the village during the exams. Reaching up, he gently guided Anko's face to his own, allowing him to stare into her eyes. I know how you feel about that bastard Anko-chan. He spoke softly. But don't let your vendetta jeopardize our main goal. I promise you, Hibiheim, if he survives this invasion of his, we will track him down and kill him ourselves. But first, let's focus on getting out of this hellhole. You're right, Naruto-kun. The snake mistress agreed. I'm sorry for letting my emotions get to me. I just want to see that bastard drown in his own blood for what he did to me. Speaking of which, how do you know so much about his plan? Probably Korvaji-san. The blonde chuckled, earning nods from the 5 girls. He is my mother's #1 spy master and assassin. He never explained how he does it, but he can get into any place without detection. Yup. Kairi agreed. Well, initially our mission was to find and extract Naruto-kun. Aqua began with a smile. But we will not leave you behind, Enko-chan. We will report to Kushina-sama our findings, and of the change of plans and continue to partake in the exams as normal. However, Naruto sighed. The hard part will be for us to continue to act like we don't know each other until we leave. Meaning this will be the only time we can really be together. All 5 of the girls looked disheartened at this, but they knew their blonde beloved had a point. During the exams, he wouldn't be able to keep his blood clone up to run distraction. So they all would have to act as if they didn't recognize him, with the exception of Anko, though even she wouldn't be able to be open with the blonde as she had already been selected to be the proctor of the second phase of the exams. If that's the case, let's make this night count, Rory stated as she wrapped her arms around Naruto, planting a firm kiss on the blonde teen's lips. Of course, this prompted a perverted giggle from the snake mistress. Not like that, Enko-chan. Morgiana chuckled, sensing the snake mistress's line of thought. That comes later, Aqua added with a mischievous grin. Hey Kit, maybe you should put that seal on them you've been working on, Kurama reminded his host. That way everyone who bears the seal will know when another is in danger, and their location. That's actually a good idea. Naruto mentally nodded. Would you girls mind if I put a seal on you? Naruto suddenly asked, catching all of the girls' attention. What does it do, Naruto-kun? Kairi asked. Kurama and I have been working on it for a while. Anyone who has the seal will be able to feel when another is in danger, and give a rough location of where they are, the blonde replied. I trust you, Naruto-kun, Xian stated as she stepped forward, volunteering to be the first one to have the seal placed upon her. Nodding, Naruto took out his Fuinjutsu ink and brush and set to work on the seal, which he had decided to put on her right shoulder blade. He really didn't have a fancy name for it, and settled for just calling it a lover's seal, since he only planned on placing it on his loved ones. What made these special, and what really linked the seals together, was that each seal was infused with a small amount of Kurama's chakra. Just enough to power the seal, though still too little to cause any damage to the person. One by one, each of the girls got the seal placed upon them. All in the same location, due to how easy it would be to hide it, and also the fact that it was easier for Naruto to get to without putting his girls in any embarrassing positions. Even Anko got the seal placed upon her, though she had teased the young blonde that she wanted it on her left breast. Though much to her dismay, Naruto had politely refused with a severe blush on his face. Once done, the girls had decided that if tonight was going to be the only time they were going to be able to be with their beloved, they were going to sleep under the stars and make the most of the little time they had together. Each laying down in a circle with their heads facing the inside of the circle, so that they could all be close to one another. Hokage's office, next morning. Hiruzen hummed a happy tune to himself as he sat down at his desk and began to sift through the pile of paperwork that had already accumulated in the few short hours the village had woken up. Still, he did nothing to sour his mood. Why? Because Danzo had agreed to send a small team of 3 freshly trained root recruits to kill the Haruno girl. Though there was a slight disagreement on what village the team should be from. Hiruzen had insisted that the root recruits wear the Barukagure headband, to try and force the Jinchuriki to lash out at his former village in anger, and implant a sense of hatred towards it. Danzo, however, had argued against it, stating that it would be best if his root recruits simply posed as a neutral village, citing that it would help in the long run and make the weapon more open to attacking any target ordered to without question, instead of relying on a grudge against just one village. Reluctantly, Hiruzen had conceded, as the old war hawk had a point. It would do him, or the village, any good if the weapon was only focused on one target. However, his cheerful tune quickly ceased when he picked up the previous day's sign-in sheet from the main gates of the village. Seeing a series of names, as well as the village of their origin, Barigakure. Upon reading the names of the visitors and the name of the village, all the color drained away from his face as he felt a chill go up his spine. All the while cursing himself for calling the council meeting the previous day to go over the major and minor details of the Chunin exams, thus making it so that he could not spy on the boy throughout most of the day. And when he did finally check on the boy, he was fast asleep in his apartment. Boar! The elder man called out. Immediately a large man bearing the boar mask appeared in a kneeling position in front of the village leader. Yes, Hokage-sama? Your team was assigned to follow the Jinchuriki yesterday. Did anyone approach him at any point throughout the day? Not really, sir. The boar A&B reported. He met with his team as instructed and received his slip to enter the Chunin exams. The boy did his typical speech about accepting the challenge if he plans to become the Hokage someday. The only event of note was during his visit to the ramen stand. One of the girls from Barukagure entered and ordered 6 miso ramen to go. Did it appear that they knew each other? Hiruzen asked carefully, knowing full well all of the girls that had come to attend the exams were friends with the boy at some point, which made him a little suspicious of their arrival. No, sir, the ANBU replied. The Jinchuriki had struck up an idle conversation with her and merely wished her luck in the exams before she departed the stand. It seems my initial fears were unfounded, Hiruzen thought to himself. It's too late to withdraw the weapon from the exams. The elder man mentally sighed. So long as the seals hold, he will have no memory of them, and it appears they have forgotten about him. Good, if anything else, I can use this to motivate him against his former home later. Thank you for your report, Boar, the Hokage stated. You are dismissed. Nodding, the boar-masked ANBU disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving the village elder to his own thoughts. Even if they are here, the weapon should be close to being mentally broken. Hiruzen grinned to himself at the thought of finally being able to wield the power of the Kyuubi. The Haruno girl's death should be the last straw. If not, I may have to arrange an accident with Anko Mitarashi. Academy. Naruto let out a tired yawn as he approached the academy to meet up with his team. Despite only having a few hours of sleep, the young blonde felt rather refreshed after spending the night with his fiancées for the first time in over 7 years. He also found out that Anko was a cuddler, much to the other girls' amusement, when the blonde had woken up with the snake mistress wrapped around his body. Having bid his farewells to his fiancées, Naruto had quickly made a mad dash towards his apartment and dispelled his blood clone before quickly taking a cold shower and getting dressed for the day's events. Morning, Naruto. Sakura greeted the blonde as he approached, biting her lip to prevent her from openly using the Kun suffix she desperately wanted to add to his name. Having come to terms with her